Well, oh well, what an exciting time we live in. Excited for something that started 15 years ago, and we get to relive it at least for a couple of months before everyone realises what a horrible grind Classic was. I'm looking forward to Classic WoW. I'm just going to do some few dailies on a few of my characters. Really, there's not a whole lot to play for right now in World of Warcraft. I have a little bit of fun just grinding away. I think that's what I'm looking forward to in Classic, to play through some of the old stuff again. I'm going to be doing it a bit different this time. For example, back in Vanilla, first time around, I was a paladin. It's a dangerous threat.
Destroy it before it preys on more innocent.
Thanks for that, Vorik.
Rise, my puppets. Destroy this intruder.
I'm going to turn the game sounds down a bit. System sounds. It's very loud, isn't it? Oh, there we go. 6%. That should do. I don't want Vorik talking over me. So, yes. So, basically, in Vanilla WoW, if you were unlucky enough to roll a Paladin, you got to heal. And you got to do nothing else but heal. You were a healer. That is who you were. You may join a raid group and say, I can do DPS. They'd be like, no, we don't want any Paladins. Thank you very much for that. You get to put blessings on every 5 minutes, and you get to dispel people who've got nasty illnesses, and that's it. That's the entirety of your role as a paladin. So raiding wasn't a great experience for me. I mean, I enjoyed healing, but again, I didn't even get to heal the raid. You know, you were a main tank healer, and that was it. So we want to do things a bit differently. I haven't decided whether to play a warrior or mage as my primary. I like warrior. You know, tanking's cool. It's the only tanking class in vanilla. You don't get to tank doing anything else. And I'm going to be playing Alliance on a PvP server on Golemagg. The reason is, well, I think the Alliance will have a hard time, that's why. You know, Horde has always been the class you pick. Well, sorry, the faction you pick if you want a PvP. Now, originally, this was because Horde were always outnumbered. In Vanilla, the Alliance were always on top. There was always more Alliance than Horde. So if you wanted to do PvP, if you wanted to do Alterac Valley and the other battlegrounds, you always went Horde, because you got almost instant pops on all your queues. You were never waiting to join, because there were like 10 times as many Alliance as there were Horde waiting to get into every battleground. So it was great for Horde if you like PvP. But now everyone understands that, you know, all the good guilds are Horde for PvP. It's just how it is. And likewise, even with some of the PvE stuff that's going on, you know. Horde are on top, but pretty much every top guild is Horde. And so because of that, I think that'll copy over to Vanilla. Lots of people will just pick Horde because they're used to all the top guilds, everything being Horde. So I'm going to pick Alliance in order to get into lots of fights, which I think is what it's all about, really. Get shorter battleground queues and enjoy the world PvP, even if it does mean being on the wrong side of the fight. You know, I think that's an important thing. But of course, there were a lot of people who played the game initially who did go Alliance, and they may choose to recreate that experience. I considered playing Horde for the thought of, well, I did Alliance first time round, so why don't I do Horde this time and, you know, experience the other side of the fight. But most of my friends will be going Alliance, and that's what it's about, really. It is about playing with your mates at the end of the day. So I'm happy as well playing that. But I'm definitely not going to do a Paladin. Yeah, other people can do that. It's not for me. You know, I've done that. I've done the getting into a fight and drinking after every single fight to get your mana back. Though, to be said, if I'm going to play a warrior, I'm going to be eating food after every single fight. So I don't think anything changes in regards to that. You know what, I'm going to be a kind guy and invite this guy, even though I've almost soloed this boss down. Yeah, I am nice. Oh, and someone else just comes to take him down as we kill him. That's a shame. Oh, maybe you got him. So, yeah, very much looking forward to Classic WoW. I have been farming lots of gold on this character for the last few weeks. Just to buy some credit for the World of Warcraft account, since I'm going to be playing Classic for a few months. And I have enough credit for the next 18 months, which is cool. 18 months of WoW tokens. I don't think I'll be needing quite so many, but a lot of people have been doing pretty much the same thing. The price of a token on EU was about 175,000 gold, and just in the last few days it has shot up to about 200,000 gold. So a lot of people's got that same idea of just sort of cashing out their gold balance because they're going to be playing WoW Classic for a few months, so they don't have any need for the gold on the regular servers, which makes a lot of sense really when you think about it. But of course, if any of you want to come play along as well, I'll be more than welcome. If you want to make a character on Golemagg on EU, so on the Alliance side. We'll see if we can't get... I'm going to hopefully be playing with a Friends Guild, but if we get a fair few of us, of course we can do something every day. I'm going to be streaming a lot of Classic WoW. I think it'll be a lot of fun to do that, at least until, like I said, I get bored, and we've got no idea how long that'll take. There's certainly a lot of things I don't want to do, like farm some of the achievements in the game, you know. I don't have any intention of trying to become Scarab Lord or anything like that. You know, very long quest chain, very tedious. And it doesn't really mean anything, does it? Because the only people who are going to be getting it are those who have absolutely massive guilds behind them. I also have no intention of taking part in the opening of a queue event in any way, shape or form. You will not find me handing in items for reputation. Like 50 billion linen cloth and stuff like that. I'm sure Craig will be on later at some point. We'll have a few good chats about what we've all got planned. But I always enjoyed grinding. I think that's one of the things I actually really liked about World of Warcraft. It was very relaxing. You had to have your music to go along with it. You know, your playlists, and I think stuff like Spotify now really helps in regards to that. Rather than listening to the same 5 YouTube songs over and over. But yeah, I've got 3 characters. Well, I've got 4 characters, but only 3 I play currently in regular WoW. And basically, I do it again for grinding because I enjoy grinding. So my basic plan of winning the game is make as much gold as possible and convert it into Blizzard currency, and then use that to buy absolutely everything else. Like, for example, you know, every time a Hearthstone set came out, I would spend sort of £80 in Blizzard balance to buy the latest set of cards. But the latest Hearthstone set's really poor, you know, and there's far too much RNG, and I tried it, I am not enjoying it. There's just warriors everywhere in Constructed, and you only have to look at the Twitch figures to see, you know, Theiss was getting 20,000 people watching his stream, and he's down to like 5,000, and he started doing Magic the Gathering streams again. It pretty much says it all. Nobody's enjoying the current Hearthstone set. They've made a lot of mistakes, and the thing is, with viewers figures being way down, it will absolutely make them realise that they're going about this the whole wrong way with regards to Hearthstone. You know, the numbers speak for themselves. Unfortunately, it always takes 3 months for that to become a thing. You know, they're never going to respond instantly to huge dips. But as the cash starts to dry up, as it inevitably will, cheeky Tide Surger, we might see some improvements to the game. But right now, sort of in Hearthstone, Dr. Boom is just crippling. Is absolutely crippling the meta. And there's a lot of things they need to do to fix that. Why can't I click on anything? This is very annoying. Tear those snakes apart. One more sticky seaweed. It won't be for everyone not being able to fly around the place as well. We're all used to our creature comforts with WoW at the moment, and the whole sort of going back to a time where you actually have to talk to people to form groups. One of the ones that always got me was, of course, you know, if you did sort of a 5-man and you spent 45 minutes travelling to a dungeon and getting in the dungeon and getting started, and then you found out that the person you brought along is just a complete idiot, you can't just drop him and pick up someone else. You literally had to teach them what to do. That's how it was. You had to make them a better player because, you know, you were stuck with them for better or for worse. So, you know, classic WoW is very much about surrounding yourself with a good bunch of people and then keeping hold of them as best you can. You know, as soon as you find that good tank and, you know, that good healer, you always want to use them. That's the thing, you know, if I'm going to tank, and Craig's main's going to be his priest. He played a priest in Classic, and he was very good at it. Come on, let me out of combat. Get out of here. And so if I just go warrior and do some tanking, then it'll be really easy for us to find 3 DPS every time. Because it is. It's easy. Everyone plays DPS. Apart from Warlocks. Nobody wants to play a Warlock. Oh, boy. That was not a fun experience, grinding shards in Classic WoW as a Warlock. But yeah, Craig's going to be on soon, and we're going to spend the evening having a chat about WoW. Now, this would normally be one of his raid nights, being a Wednesday, but his guild are sort of winding things down in preparation for Classic as well. It's going to be very interesting to see whether it's actually going to be a smooth release or not. I think that's one thing that fascinates me. Like the original World of Warcraft was I can still remember it. It was such a horrible release when it came out. Servers were down constantly. I noticed that it's the actual size of the game is about 145 megabytes. Now, of course, back when it was out, first time round, if you downloaded the game, which you didn't, you know, because you got a physical copy, but if you patched it and needed to do a full download, I had like a 1 meg a minute connection, I think it was. So, you know, it would take 2.5 hours, being 140, 150 meg. And so when I downloaded it this time around, and it took, you know, about 5 minutes from the start to finish, it was like, okay, I now have a 30 meg a second account. and the game goes from being a 2.5 hour download to a 5 minute download. You're thinking, yeah, okay. Things will be a little bit different this time around. No more dodgy internet connection ruining your game and play experience. Let's see, what ones are we going to do here? I suppose we can go beat up the Necrofin Murlocs. I need power for my neck. Craig's doing the same thing as well. He's just waiting to get the kids in bed and waiting for the household to get quiet. Thanks for that, Toki. I got a bad feeling about this. Yeah, you know, you could help us with a bit of fighting. I always love that. I always love like the attitude of the characters in the game. It's like, let's go kick some ass, and then they just let you do it all. Really? And what exactly are you doing? Well, I'm sure you'll be there to take credit for helping to kill these 15 Murlocs at the end of it, right? We sure showed them. No, I showed them. You did nothing. Murlocs. Oh yeah, being a paladin and trying to DPS with the class was just an awful experience in Classic. But the thing is, at the time I didn't know it was a bad experience because it was all I experienced, and the game was so good that I enjoyed it immensely. But looking back on it, oh boy was it dull. Like having 3 buttons and waiting about 3.5 seconds between swings of your weapon. Dumb. Dumb. You know, they didn't do anything fast, paladins. I mean, that's not to say that current WoW doesn't have its problems. It definitely does. Like if you enjoy doing Mythic Dungeons, for example, basically every single top mythic keystone is the same composition. You know, warrior tank, 3 rogues for DPS, and a druid for healing, and nothing else. And it's really the same in any game. In Classic WoW is a good example of that as well. You know, the min-maxing. You always wanted your raiders to be the absolute best. So if you were a paladin and you wanted to DPS, you never got into any groups. Conversely, if you were a mage, you always got into them because they were the absolute top DPS, and you also needed hunters and warlocks and, you know, other classes. But paladins for DPS, no. Likewise, you know, druids, they didn't DPS, they healed and did nothing else. You could on rare occasions find a druid tank, but again, it wasn't particularly fun and experience. It was just about packing as much HP. You were basically a sponge. You could do nothing to stop things hitting you. You just had to take every hit on the chin. And you didn't even get to do any main tanking. You know, you're just running around swiping ads. Paladins were even worse for that, because with paladins, if you were a paladin tank, you got mana by being hit. Oh, sorry, I think you got mana by being healed. Yeah, you got mana by being healed, I think it was. So you had to take damage in order for people to heal you, and that gave you mana back. Likewise with warriors, you got your rage from being hit. So if you were about to pull and one of the priest healers put a shield on you, you never developed any rage, and you got very angry, because then of course the mob ended up going for somebody else because you can't hold the aggro because you've got no rage. And the wipe happened very soon afterwards. You know, there was always that call, wasn't there, from the tanks. Wait for like 5 sunders before you start DPSing. You know, if you were a mage and you started DPSing straight away, you got aggro very quickly. The same with the healers as well. He just stole my fish. I was kicking that fish. Unbelievable. I needed to kick that fish, damn it. You kick that fish. Can't believe he did that. How rude. My fish. To be fair, I did badly miss with the kick, so I kinda deserved that for not getting the fish in on the first attempt. More carp! We need more carp. No sign of Craig yet. I'm sure it shouldn't be too much longer for him. Iron Zoko.
My subjects seldom face a true change. You all try to divide them.
There he is. Made it in time. So yeah, for the last couple of weeks I've been playing the auction house, basically just in preparation for Classic WoW. It was something I did all the time in Classic WoW. I loved playing the auction house. Buying low, selling high. Getting an idea for what everything is worth. And of course there won't really be that much opportunity for the first month at least to do that, because everyone's saving up cash for their mounts. And as a result, really, there's not going to be many things getting bought and sold because, well, people don't have the money to be buying things off the auction house. So you will see most of the good, guilds with a solid understanding. They will simply be holding on to all of the materials they get. They may sell them at some point in the future, but that'll be when they're worth a lot more and people have the cash to be able to spend on them. It's a fish. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the classic raids again. Golemagg, Stratholme. Okay, yeah, there's a few I'm not looking forward to. Diamall. Diamall was one of those, do it the absolute bare minimum you can get away with it, and then never return. It was just too long. But you needed to do it for some of your resistance gear, if you were ever going to do AQ20 or AQ40, you needed some nature resistance gear from Diamall in particular was one of the spots.
Champion seeks to earn glory in my name. It would be cruel of me to deny them this opportunity.
Let's get in a group for this one. Oh, declined. I guess they've just completed it. I guess I'll start my own then. With blackjack and hookers. Classic WoW was basically very unfair. But the devs didn't have a good understanding of what the game should be about. Therefore, it was quite unbalanced with the classes, and if you picked a bad one, you were basically boned. Like I said, if you were like me and you played a paladin, you got to heal. And if you're a frost mage, you got to have lots of fun in PvP. Likewise, druids were extremely difficult to kill in PvP as well. I am trying to remember, you know, it's my first experience of classic WoW and who I used to play with on a regular time. It's all so hazy. But I did raid quite a few of the early raid dungeons. So I did Molten Core, AQ20, AQ40. I never got into Naxxramas, which is, you know, one of the things I'd like to do this time around. Is do Naxxramas. Obviously, I did everything else other than Nax. Mount Hyjal was fun. Black Temple. Enjoyed Black Temple, though it was a long day. Like if you were doing Black Temple. Oh boy. One of the things really where it was a lot different was there was no real enrage timers in Classic. So fights went on for as long as they went on. They went on well for as long as the healers had mana and for as long as nobody made any mistakes. And a lot of the raiders were basically terrible at the game. Like, a lot of us were genuinely awful at the game because we didn't know what to do, how to build our class properly, what our class should be. So I think you'll see this time around, certainly Molten Core will get completed quite easily, because people understand what a good class to play is and what a good build is, and people understand how to tank properly. We didn't really use add-ons all that much. There were basically two add-ons you had. One told you how much threat you had. So something like Omen. And you had a second one if you were a healer for just, you know, splitting people up into groups and managing who to dispel, stuff like that. But yeah, add-ons wasn't really a thing either. But one of the things we're going to be talking about with Craig is making the money. Because really we're planning on... Oh, don't have anything here to click on, unfortunately. I'm all out of additional stuff. So one of the things that's really important is that you don't kind of do the same professions as your mates. You know, you got to pick different professions and basically share each other's stuff. So Craig will be taking tailoring and enchanting, which are good for him because they don't really require any gathering. I suspect I'm going to end up doing something like mining and skinning initially, and then maybe drop the skinning and take either engineering or blacksmithing. But of course in classic WoW you could only your mini-map would only show one profession. So if you had, you know, skinning and... if you had, like, mining and herbalism, you had to choose between seeing all the herbs and seeing all the ore. You couldn't see both. But there was a little add-on that used to flick between the two professions every couple of seconds on the mini-map. I do remember that one. I'm going to enjoy Gnomeregan. I always enjoyed Gnomeregan. There's definitely quite a few dungeons I'm looking forward to. And being on the Alliance, it means I get to do stockades as much as I possibly want. What an awful dungeon that was.
Let's make this a bit more interesting. The chosen of Nazjatar answer to me. Behold.
It's a big worm. Now, oh, I'm dead. I'm dead. Still alive. I'm good. Somehow survived that on 0 HP. Ow! Stunned for 10 seconds. Oh, I'm dead. Now I'm dead. Yeah, absolutely dead. Everything on cooldown. 10 seconds stun. Really? That was a bit unfair. That's what I get for not paying attention to what's going on. That's very harsh, 10 seconds stun. Very harsh. Really? Stunned for 10 seconds again? I've only just rezzed up. What do you think? You just went, you get stunned. Give me a break here, worm. Did I just did all that for 70 gold and a little bit of rep and 4 moist fillets. What a good word moist is. Moist. I do like that word, moist. But yeah, it's almost like a spreadsheet, classic WoW. You know, because you had to plan your day out. You were like, okay, we're gonna go to Stratholme, and it's like a 2.5 hour fight, and we're going to start at this time, and we're going to finish at this time, and we're going to do it with these people, and they all have to be. Whereas nowadays, it's only really raiding where you have to make these kind of preparations. But in Classic, you just had to organise absolutely everything, unless you wanted to be just shouting your head off in the trade channel, along with 200 other people. There we go. Which I suppose I can get away with if myself and Craig do go down the whole, you know, tank and healer route. But if any hunter starts rolling need on my gear, let me tell you, things are not going to go out well for them. Because every weapon is a hunter weapon, as we're all well aware. For anyone who played Classic. I need that! That helps me! I think there were a couple of druid and sort of mage staffs or staves that got rolled on by hunters all the time as well, because it was basically a stat stick to a hunter. You know, they never used the item because they had a bow for that, but if it had good stats on it, that's all the hunter cared about. So yeah, I've been buying... I've spent a lot of gold on just buying WoW tokens. I've got about, what, 100... Yeah, 100,000 gold on me at the moment. Halfway to my next token. If I can... I should be able to make that in the next few days. No. Yeah, there'll be none of this, you know, in Classic WoW. Signing up for something, immediately getting an invite, and then getting into a fight almost straight away. Oh. Tell you what, I'm going to run away and hide while I do some chatting here. Not paying attention to stuff and just basically dying. Yeah, one of the things we had a chat about the other day was Karazhan, of all things, which was, it came in the first expansion in Outlands, and was a fantastic dungeon. Again, just an absolutely beautiful raid dungeon. And there have been some great raids, you know, in WoW over the last 15 years. My favourite one, personally, was Ulduar. I loved that raid more than anything. Really cleverly well thought out raid where you could do it on multiple difficulties, and you really felt like you were making progress with that raid. They had the super secret boss that you could do as well in there, but you had to have unlocked everything else, and you only got one attempt on it every week, which was a fantastic idea, and really punishing for people as well. You know, one attempt to kill that boss. So that was like a real achievement for when, you know, that world first sort of went down.
Run away, little girl.
But yeah, both Scholomance and Stratholme I enjoyed. Scarlet Monastery in Classic WoW I enjoyed. There were a few zones I really hated, like Desolus. But there were zones which were fantastic as well. Lakeshire was a good zone. Darkshire even. Badlands, you know, it was very open and not much there, but you know, Badlands was just the sort of places that you enjoy just because of the questing experience you had first time around. Like, I used to love South Shore versus Tarren Mill. So back on the server I played for initially, I was the guy who actually started off all the fights between South Shore and Tarren Mill. So let me explain to you how it all went down. So like I said, initially I played a paladin, and I was a retribution paladin, so I was a fighty paladin, and I hit level 52, I'd say 51, 52, and I got extremely bored with leveling because, oh boy, was it a grind at this point, because you run out of quests. You do all the quests in Western Plaguelands and Eastern Plaguelands, and there's nothing else to do other than hit skeletons for 8 levels or find groups to do dungeons. But the problem was I'd leveled up too fast. I was one of the first people to level 50 on our server. And I ended up being, I think, 12th to hit level 60. But at level 50, I was like 2nd or 3rd. So there was nothing to do, because you can't do Golemagg and Stratholme if nobody else is your level. And there were no tanks, because of course all the tanks were much lower level, because they can't level as fast as like the pure DPS classes. So I decided to basically start harassing the undead horde who were trying to do their quests in Tarren Mill. And by harassing, I just mean, well, I'm level 50, you're level 32, I'm going to kill you over and over again. Because that's what PvP is about, just basically killing people. And at the time, I was an engineer. I was a gnomish engineer, and I had this invisibility device that used to break if you got damaged. So when you turned yourself invisible, if any kind of effect hit you after that time, you'd immediately come out. So any kind of AoE, or even just a spell that somebody's cast before you turned invisible, but it hit you after you turned invisible, and you'd pop back up. But I was a paladin, so I could go Divine Shield, make myself immune to all damage, then pop the invisibility trinket and escape to freedom. Which wasn't a problem when you were against people who were level 30. I mean, you just killed them. But what happened was I very quickly caught the attention of everyone on the Horde side who was, you know, level 50 plus as well. Because basically all the level 30s went, this guy keeps killing us. And then all the level 50s came along to help them and to try and kill me. In fact, Craig's just come online now, so maybe we'll get to speak to him soon. And at which point I would go bubble. I'd either bubble half, but the thing is, the Hearthstone was on a 1-hour cooldown back then. Very, very slow, and you couldn't rely on that. So I used to bubble, turn on the invisibility trinket, which I think had a 3 or a 5 minute cooldown. Run away for 10 seconds before the invisibility broke, and by that time I'd be out of combat, could mount up and escape before they realised where I'd actually run off to. And because of that, the South Shore versus Tarren Mill fight started on our server, as I'd basically gank all the low level horde until all their high level mates came along. At which point I would run away crying, and basically I would then sort of shout out to everyone else and say, big fight going on outside South Shore, come and help. And then all the other high level Alliance players had come along, and this fight lasted for about 6 to 8 weeks, really, almost on a daily basis. It was like 10 minutes after I logged on the server. I'd be straight back outside Tarren Mill, beating Horde up, and the fights would start for the next day. But yeah, you know, this was basically done because...
Oh, 6 to 8 weeks daily.
6
to 8 weeks daily.
Bit of echo there, Craig.
6 to 8 weeks daily.
Use your headphones. Craig. Use your headphones.
That might help a bit. If I can't hear you as well.
But yeah, when did we start playing together?
Yeah, to be fair, the thing is, we were there before it even launched because it was a twinkle in our eye, wasn't it, when they first started, before even the beta, and we knew it was in development, and we saw all the screenshots and we're like, oh, it looks so pretty. And it was the first of its. I mean, I was playing a 2D isometrical MMO before it came out. I'm like, it's got blocks and things, and then this came out, and it's like,
yeah, I was playing Asheron's Call before it came out, and of course I had a few friends who played EverQuest. I think EverQuest came out first, didn't it?
yeah.
And that was a proper grind, EverQuest. I know I have friends who planned their lunch breaks around mana regeneration in that game. So if you were basically the mage class in that game, there was no way of there was no drinks in the game for getting your mana back. So you would fight, and then when you ran out of mana, you'd have to stand around for 10 to 15 minutes to get your mana ball back. You know, this is what games were about.
Yeah.
You know, this was their idea of grinding. Is like literally you have to stand still for 15 minutes to get your mana back. And so he had a mate who always planned all of his meals or anything else. It's like, right, okay, I'm going to tidy my room for 10 minutes now. Well, I'll wait for my mana to come back.
It was a prelude to the mobile games and the energy there, wasn't it? Oh.
Yes, yeah, but the thing was, he played this mage class, and this particular mage class did have an innovate spell, and people used to beg him, you know, because he could cast a spell on other people, not on himself, that made their mana regenerate like 500% faster or something like that. But he could only do it on one character, so he used to sell that spell to other people. You know, if you want this, it'll cost you money. And basically, if they wanted to play the game, well, they
paid the money.
Yeah. And that's what grinding was about, wasn't it? Back in vanilla, you know, it was this idea that you kind of you waited around a long time for nothing much to happen, and you were fine with that.
Yeah. Well, it'd be like you'd grind and grind and grind to get the recipe that needed rep to do it, and then you'd have to grind and grind and grind to get the mats to get the recipe to make the item that you would then do to fight the last boss on the first raid.
Well, yeah. So you would grind to get the rep, and then you'd have to grind a certain mob after that to get the recipe drop.
Yeah. And
then you'd have to grind to get the materials, and then if you were a blacksmith, then you'd have to go and do Blackrock Lair or whatever to get to the anvil to be able to craft the item, because there was one special anvil in the entirety of the game that could craft this particular item that you needed. And I think a lot of people, certainly because it's been 15 years, have forgotten how annoying all of this was.
Yeah, we've talked about this again. No, achievements are a thing. No more is it going to be looking for group, and then like looking for group, have you got the key? Or looking for group, are you attuned?
I mean, this is the important thing. If you can find a bunch of friends, then you're fine, because you know a part of the key would drop. And you'd always give it to the same person, because when you give it to one person, it's as good as giving it to everyone, because you only ever do things together.
And that's the thing, you've hit an important key part, which people haven't realised, that there is no looking for group, facility there. It's the same group on the same server. You peeve people off on that server, you get blacklisted. You'll get into no more groups, because it's that's it. There's no cross to the server facility there. By the same, if you're a good tank, you're going to get added to friends lists, and you'll get into good groups, and it'll encourage again. And I saw it in playing with the beta. People were polite to each other.
Yeah.
Didn't at all. for months on end without a thank you. So it's like I said, there'll be a few people who very quickly get frustrated and I can never get a group again. So yeah, interesting. But also a life lesson. Do unto others.
Well, it'll be a life lesson for all the hunters once they realise they're a bad hunter.
Yeah, well...
As soon as you start being that hunter who just pulls stuff or doesn't unsummon their pet before jumping down. Oh, I used to love that.
Yep.
Like if you in a raid group and you'd jump down and the hunter wouldn't unsummon the pet and the pet would run all the way around, and this was when pets pulled everything.
Everything. Yep. You'd turn around and go, "Where's the pet? Where's the pet?" And that slow sinking feeling where you're just like, I'm just going to stop now, go and get myself a drink. It may take 2 minutes, but the rest of the dungeon's going to catch up with us.
And the worst thing about it, I mean, was the fact that the hunter just feigned death and he was the only one who survived. That's what I hated about it. Everyone else died, and the hunter who caused it all went, "Oh, no repair bill for me."
No. You go and stand on the hunter. Wait for some arrow again. If I'm dying, you're dying.
Remember having to compensate the tank? Because he was the only one who ever got the repair bill, right? Because he was dying over and over again.
And that was his high repair bills for plate versus cloth as well. Comes some happy coffee. That really feel for them.
And that's all normalised now. Every class has the same repair bill. But you're absolutely right. The plate wearers would get huge repair bills, huge, and the clothies would get pennies in comparison.
Absolutely.
But you had to compensate your tank. The tank would be like, right, you're all giving me 2 gold. Otherwise, we're not doing this because I'm going to be skint by the end of this. I'm looking for a fish to kick. There's no fish. Where's all my fish? I need one more fish. Yeah, I'm sure you can tell I'm grinding in Nashitar.
Yes. They fixed the shoot the ball things. You used to shoot them early, and then you'd still lose health. And you can shoot them as quickly as you want now. It's great. It's a lot easier. Wait for those OAPs with the slow reflexes.
So yeah, we're going to be doing quite a bit, aren't we, in Classic?
It does, alas, seem like nostalgia has grabbed us by the neck and said, relive the fun. So I just need to create the time to relive the fun. But yeah, we'll be heavily involved. Probably helped by the fact that you're tanking, I'm healing, and the rest is history.
Yes. I don't think we'll struggle to find groups as a result of that. But likewise, maybe no hunters, because they'll all be rolling on your gear, no matter what you are.
No, don't want them.
Because they'll be like, that staff has crit. I need that.
In our group, hunter loot is vendor loot.
That staff has spirit. I need that.
Yeah. I happily accept that a mage will be useful. I'll accept another clothy.
Oh yes, mages will be very useful. I mean, warlocks will be extremely useful, but nobody wants to play them.
I've never seen one. They were too busy farming soul shards.
You never actually got to do any fighting as a warlock.
No.
The thing is, I might have to have a warlock ult just to summon people.
It is nice when you're camping world bosses just to kind of park it there.
Yeah, but the thing is, I might park him in Booty Bay.
Yeah.
Because that's like a really awkward place to get to.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not so much for Alliance, but the idea is, make a character, and a warlock. Get him to level 20 so you can get your little summoning portals, and then go put him somewhere that takes forever.
Yeah.
And if we both do that and we both park him at the same place, then we can sort of summon each other with the help of other people in future.
Yeah.
And just fly around the world quite fast. For the same reason, you know, that's why everyone loves the mage.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot of what Classic is about. It's a very inconvenient game, and it's about making the game as convenient as possible.
That's it, because your playtime is, you know, a
Yes.
lot of it is just getting to and from places.
Well, more so now than ever before.
Yeah.
First time me playing the game, I was playing poker for a living at the time. So I really had as much time as I ever needed to play WoW. You know, 25 years old, living with parents, making a load of money playing poker, but at the same time, don't really need to make any money.
Yeah.
So if I just wanted to play WoW, I could just play WoW. So time wasn't an issue. But nowadays, absolutely, you know, if you can do anything to cut 30 minutes, an hour off your day, you will do that.
Even me, I was working, but got home, logged into WoW, but I was obviously in a top-end raid guild, so it's like, man, spend at least an hour sorting out guild drama. And my 15 healers. It was good fun.
You mean 15 priests?
Yeah, near enough. No, we had a couple of the other ones. You had to have at least 2 paladins. And I'm not ashamed about it.
You would never dream of playing Horde.
Yeah. And one druid.
One druid.
Yeah.
One druid for the buff.
Yeah. Buff and one set of hots.
Yeah, I mean, if you could have him buff you, and then you could kick him out of the group, you would do that, but
yeah, probably.
that was probably cutting it a bit too far.
No, to be fair, Trank was a thing back then. To be fair, the only thing they brought to the table was a thing.
Enrage.
Yeah.
Absolutely was a thing. But Hunters had it as well, didn't they?
Yeah, they had Trank shot. Which they very much bitterly. That was a DPS loss, seriously.
Yeah, because it was basically having a chat before about, you know, things will be completed a lot faster this time around, you know, because people understand the classes. Like the Raiders back in Classic WoW back then were pretty bad. You know, we were all bad.
Well, I remember a very long discussion in terms of whether healers needed hit to mind control, and we didn't know. Blizzard hadn't released this information whether mind control was actually affected by hit, and it was pure trial and error on Vesuvius, and an Exoramus boss where priests had to mind control certain mobs to tank the boss. And obviously, no, healing priests just didn't come with hit, so we had to go and specifically farm hit pieces, and they were quite tricky to find.
Yeah, it was about 7% hit, didn't you need to avoid missing?
Yeah, to completely avoid. I think from about 3% onwards, statistically, you could get through most mind controls without an issue. But to be absolutely certain, it was 7. I think there's a buff of 3% from somebody or something.
Yes, there is. You're absolutely right. There's something that gives a 3% buff to hit in vanilla. Oh, what was it?
I know at one point the Shadow Priest did it, but I think that was later. But there was something else.
Yeah, maybe the Druid buff gave it.
Might be. I think that was stats, armor, and possibly resists. I don't know. It's stats and armor. But to be fair, at one point anyway.
It could have been a warrior shout that gave.
Yeah, it could have been something like that. But I remember back and later on, because everyone, when you were min-maxing, and there are a lot of different stats you could have on your gear. So you'd have a lot of people with gear without their hit on because they knew they can get the bust from certain areas. So when you had to form your raid group and you didn't have that particular class there, it caused absolute havoc because suddenly everyone was having to swap different bits of gear and re-enchant the gear because they were below hit cap.
Yes, yeah.
So yeah, that's back when the thing is, first thing you do, hit cap, and then all other things. Something to look forward to. Although, actually, no, not for me, not for a while. I don't need hit.
Now, in vanilla, here's one. Did healers have to be looking in the direction of the person they had to heal?
Not for all. Some spells did. Some spells did.
Because that's not a thing anymore now.
No.
Like, you can be facing in any direction. But I'm sure in vanilla there was a point where you had to turn your character round to be looking at whoever it was you were healing.
The single target heal did. So like flash heal, which was really all you used as a priest. Yeah, you had to be facing your target.
So there's a lot of these mechanics we've forgotten about, aren't there? That is going to come back and basically slap you in the face. You're going to be like, oh my god, I've got to do this again.
It will be interesting exactly how truly authentic it is, because I know there are some quality of life things that are still being retained.
Yes, one of them is the loot.
Yeah.
So because of, ninja looting, and it used to be that if someone picked up an item that wasn't meant for them, you'd have to get a GM, and the GM would have to get the item traded over, and that was only if the GM was in a good mood, they were allowed to do it, but they genuinely tried to dissuade people from doing
they stopped doing it. We used to have that conversation at the beginning of the raid to go, please clarify the loot rules in raid chat. So and it'd be like, highest roller wins, and then you get those really sketchy ones to go, I'm not going to confirm it, I'll confirm it later, and then the loot would drop, and they take it all, and they go, ha ha ha, because I haven't confirmed any loot, so tough. And you ping the GM, and he's like, sorry, nothing I can do. In the end, obviously, they were just sick of dealing with this, which in some ways tells you, if you're sick of dealing with it, then the sheer number of requests you have tell you there's a problem, hence the change in the loot. But again, it's just people will get away with what they can get away with. So again, another interesting side thing of how people will handle these kind of interactions in a much smaller world, in inverted commas.
Strangely, I think this time around it's going to be a lot more social. You know, I think the casuals will manage a couple of weeks and then they'll be off.
Yeah.
But I think there'll be a lot of people who haven't been playing WoW for a number of years and do come back for Classic. And maybe once they've had that taste of Classic and then had enough for it, will go on to play retail.
Yeah, the numbers do seem to suggest. I mean, again, it's people have done the current raids here now, and so there's a definite desire for something slightly different, and there are a lot of them who weren't around that time. So like, ooh, what? This is what everyone's talking about. I'm thinking, yeah, but it's not what you think it is.
There's definitely going to be a rude awakening for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah.
But I certainly think the first 30 levels will be a lot of fun. There were good zones.
Yeah.
Generally were good zones. Loved Lakeshire, loved Darkshire. Getting. I think that's one of the things that probably annoys a lot of the Horde. That they don't really get to do those Great Alliance dungeons.
Yes. Yeah.
What low-level Horde character is going to go all the way to the Alliance starter zone almost?
Yeah.
Just to go fight Cookie on a boat.
It is. I think that's the iconic thing, is doing that dungeon at that level. Yeah. And it was that bit, wasn't it, where you kind of go, who thought to put a boat in a cave? And then, better yet, a Murloc, cook, and you can get his wooden spoon, which was actually quite a good one on my loot list.
And it was fascinating, because if you went off and you could start that dungeon, couldn't you?
Yeah.
And then by the time you got to the end of the dungeon, the mobs were so much higher level. You were like, what's going on here?
Yep.
You know, you start off in there and you're fighting at level 18 mobs. And by the time you get to the end of it, you're fighting like level 23, 24 mobs. So you're gradually getting your ass kicked without realising it.
Yep.
You know, there was genuine progression throughout the dungeon itself.
Yeah.
You'd be like, sorry, I've got to stop now because I can't do any more of this. He's kicking my ass now. We're going to have to come back a couple of levels.
Yeah. You get those, wouldn't you, with the low level healer going, oh, we'll be alright. And you're like, yeah, we'll be alright to begin with. But later, your very small mana pool will begin to show.
Like, certainly in WoW nowadays, every boss in every dungeon, in a dungeon, is the same difficulty. You know, the first boss is as hard or as easy to kill as the last boss, generally, because they've all got the same stats.
Yeah.
You know, you might have slightly different mechanics, and you might find some of the mechanics easy and some of the mechanics hard to do, but that's just personal preference, isn't it?
Yeah.
The boss itself is no harder, but when you went off and did, you know, Dead Mines or something like that, the first boss you fought against was tuned for level 18 players, and the last boss was tuned for level 22 players.
Yeah,
and there was no way you were going to gain 4 levels between the start of that dungeon and the end.
No.
You could gain 2.
Because you had the guy with the hammer, didn't you? And he hit hard, and you're like, oh, this is the boss. And then he'd go down, and you might get his hammer if you were lucky. But then you get with Bancleaf.
But then you'd fight the
Ogre Mage,
mechanic.
Yes, yeah.
I'm trying to remember his name.
In the wood, the wood chopping room.
Yes, the mechanical golem.
Yeah.
I keep thinking Harvest Golem, and I'm going, no, that's Hearthstone, damn it. But the Harvest Golem did, in fact, come from outside that dungeon, in that zone. So you fight the Harvest Golem, and then you'd fight the guy at the end of the platform before just as you got onto the boat.
Yeah. The ship's mate, Schmidt.
And he was later replaced years later, wasn't he, by the Tauren?
Yes.
Yeah, because like they've swapped a couple of the characters around in that dungeon.
Yeah, I try to think, because did there used to be something, you know, in the mech rooms? You had like the smelter room, didn't you? And I'm sure there used to be something in there that stood on the middle pedestal.
Yeah. So the first boss you fought was that the goblin?
The
ogre.
You had the ogre at the door with the hammer.
Yep.
That was like going in.
Right. Then you went through to the next bit.
Yeah.
There was an optional boss, wasn't there, down the
a rare
side
drop.
tunnel?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably what we were thinking of there. As you said, he didn't always spawn, but he was down a side tunnel to the left. But again, like the mechanics in the game were sneaky.
Yes.
So, for example, when you opened a set of doors and went through to the next room, mobs spawned behind you who slowly started walking up towards you, and it took them about 2 minutes to reach you, by which time you were halfway through another fight, and somebody at the back, the healer, would be dead. Because three mobs just dropped onto him who were gradually walking their way through the dungeon.
Those are mortal words. Watch the patrol.
Yeah, but this was a patrol that was never there to start with.
No, you can see it to start with.
It literally spawned halfway through the dungeon.
Yeah.
And that's, this was fascinating because it was, if it was your first time playing through, it was damn hard to escape without dying in that dungeon. Because that was sneaky, that was unheard of to do something like that.
Yeah. Minor Johnson, that was the rare. Yeah. Did he drop a shield or something, I think it was? Gold-plated buckler, yeah. Yeah, because I remember having to go in a few times with a tank. So I want that shield.
Yeah.
Yeah, then it was Sneed. Sneed Shredder, yeah, and Sneed then dropped out, didn't he? And
Yep.
he had a glove seed and something else. Then it was then Gilnid in the Foundry, was there? And he had a ring, didn't he? Yeah, the lavishly jeweled ring. So I remember them by the loot as much as I did by the lost. Thinking, why am I going back to this one? Because I need that drop. Mr. Smite, yeah, that was the Tauren.
Yes, but he wasn't in the original, was he, Mr. Smite?
I think they changed it to like Mr. Smythe or something, but there was a change later on. But yeah, he was the original one. Because he swapped weapons, didn't he?
Yes,
yeah, that was
he had 3 modes, or I think, or possibly 2 modes. But he had a Berserker, and he had one with his shield, didn't he, where he would block attacks from the front, I think.
Yes, yes.
And he'd throw bombs on the floor that would blow up and knock you off, and you'd end up in the water.
Yeah. Yeah, that was it. Dual wield and then the mace out. I remember the emotes, but then you remember them again because there's so many toys that now make. And then we got Captain Greenskin, who was on the deck as you're walking by, and he was with lots of patrols as well. So you had to end up trying to clear it around him and not pull him straight away, as someone always would, and then you'd run into the patrols.
You'd have skippable Cookie.
Yep.
People would be like, I don't want to do him. And you'd be like, I need him.
I'm a cloth priest. I'm the healer. We've got to do it. No.
But that was it, you know. Like when you were doing these sort of dungeons first time around, people were like looking for group, and you'd be like, "I'm only joining if you're doing this boss. You know, if you're not doing that boss, I'm not joining."
Yeah, that's it as well. Gone were the days. Oh, we can skip this. We can skip this. We can skip this. You're almost certain that everybody needed, something of the optional bosses. So, no, we're doing a full run.
Unless it's Dire Maul. You never did a full run of Dire Maul.
No.
Certainly not all the wings. It's like, no. You don't have 20 hours, sorry.
And that was a long walk as well.
Yeah, it was an hour to get to Dire Maul, and it was 10 minutes every time you died, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Again, though, this was the thing, it was all designed with the intention of, if you die, you must be punished.
Yes. Let us once reiterate again, healer dies, you all run. We'll be having none of those habits going around, and this will be an education of a server going, here's the good group guide.
Yeah, and it's great when, there were 2 of you who were friends, because it was like, well, we've both run back, so we know who's getting kicked out if they don't run back.
Mm-hmm. Or the fact you carry on and you just wouldn't rest, and no, that's fine. You're getting no loot. And see how long before they'd actually respawn and walk.
Remember the Hearthstone on the 1 hour cooldown?
Yeah.
And how you could force a Hearthstone by leaving the group you were in a dungeon.
Yeah. Oh dear.
Because it used to be it would port you back to wherever you Hearthstoned.
Yeah.
Now I'm sure they changed it so it ported you back to nearest graveyard.
Yes, they did.
But in vanilla, it was to wherever you bound.
Yeah.
So that was handy.
Mm-hmm. Although the ninja point was still the same.
But we've got a lot sort of to plan really in the game, because again it's all about making things as convenient as possible. You don't need 3 people with enchanting.
No.
Certainly not if you're always going to be doing the dungeons together.
Well, this is it. Yeah. So especially with tank or healer, you're not really farming outside content so much. Not until you outgear it anyway.
Yeah, because it used to be that the person who disenchanted everything, he always rolled greed.
Yeah.
If you needed it, you rolled need, and if you didn't need it, you passed.
Yeah.
So if nobody needed it, the enchanter got it for disenchanting.
Yeah. Because they eventually brought in a disenchant option, didn't they?
Yes.
So if there was a disenchanter in the group, it could be disenchanted and then.
But by anyone, and that was like, boo.
Yeah. Do you know how long I've leveled this?
Exactly. This is my benefit, damn it.
Yeah.
I get to disenchant stuff for the cash money.
But even that was, if you had a nice group and you didn't need it, then the nice enchanter would disenchant it and hand the shard out to whoever won the roll for them to sell it later. And that way it added an extra value to, a friendly, well-performing group because you could get extra money from rather than just the vendor value. Especially for those.
And the vendor value, on a cloth item was pennies.
Yeah. But if it was a level 60 blue, you were getting your shards. They sold well.
They sold very well. I think that's one of the things you're going to notice, though, that people will not be enchanting their gear like they used to, because they know how quickly you get better gear.
Yeah.
So there's going to be none of this, it's going to be almost like it needs to be a best in slot or at least a solid item that will not be getting upgraded for a while unless you're very, very lucky.
Yeah, I think because from the classic one, you had to have certain levels to be able to disenchant certain levels of gear. So you'll be wanting to get your enchanting up to get your recipes and be able to roll need on the recipes that you don't have. And also actually be able to disenchant these high level blues.
But you
like
need a bunch of friends for that. You need a bunch of friends, or you need to be extremely rich somehow.
Yeah, but that's the advantage. Again, the enchanter will be handing out the free enchants just to level up the stuff, but that'll be the bare minimum to level up, and then any of the useful, end game enchants will be stored, like you said, then for when you actually get decent gear.
Yes. Because everything was expensive in vanilla.
Yep.
Because of the time it took to get anything, you had a very clear cost on anything you did. If you enchant something, you were like, right, it took me, 8 days to get all the materials for this enchantment.
Yep.
So this is an 8-day investment if I actually put this enchantment on something.
And it did, which was what we were talking about one recently, weren't we? Requiring the righteous orbs, and people did, and you get maybe one a run. So that was 4 dungeon runs, and given that a dungeon run was an hour and a half, 2 hours, it really was, an investment over a number of days to be able to do one enchantment.
And paladins needed like 8 of them for the mount or something like that.
Yeah, that was frustrating as well. I need them, but I need them for the enchant to sell the enchant.
So they're like, okay, we're going to this dungeon, no paladins. I am not grouping with any paladins. And everyone will be like, well, yeah, but I can sell this to a paladin for lots of cash.
That was it. Or another enchanter sitting but you don't even have enchanting. Again, another advantage to getting a well-balanced group that all need different things, so they each kind of get their own reward with the run, rather than having 3 or 4 people rolling on the same item, and then everyone else getting nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it will be a case if I'm tanking and you're healing, it'll be like, okay, we will be inviting 3 DPS, and we're only accepting people who don't want this item.
But you did have a lot of that. There was a lot of the times if you formed a group, and one thing which frustrated me at the time, but I didn't begrudge it, where people provided the tanks and the healers, and you get a run going, we're doing this run, but this item's reserved, or this item's, and like first epic is handed out. And for random DPS guy, like, you're doing nothing, you're not raid leading, you're not actually doing anything, why am I giving you an item? Yeah, but at the same time, if you've got a group who'd already like formed and they were like had their 2 tanks and had a couple of healers and and a good raid leader, you're like, fair enough, that's your fee for putting this run together. Don't begrudge that at all.
Yeah, it used to be you got nothing at all if you were just a random. You only got something if nobody else needed it.
Yeah. But it was good as well because your chance of completing sets or certain things was quite small. So you needed a few things to kind of sway in your favour. So I'll be able to kind of.
Oh, I mean, don't get me wrong. I've been in raid groups where they'd be like, they said to me beforehand, you're not going to get anything unless nobody else needs it. However, almost nobody needs anything at all.
Yeah.
And you'd get like 3. I remember it was like doing Ulduar, and I'd get like 3 drops.
Yeah.
And people would just be like, "Yeah, we don't need any of this stuff," because really, like after doing 5 or 10 runs of Ulduar, there's just so much loot that drops in that place.
Yeah.
When you're doing things within the timer and getting the extra drops and stuff like that.
Yeah. All it was really about was, the rare bits of hard mode mob, or maybe someone needed a particular tier piece. But for the kind of generic pieces, like, nope.
For the first 5 or 6 bosses, you'd very quickly not need anything at all from stuff like that. So, there's definitely advantages to getting yourself into established raid groups, Certainly, no one likes doing the progress raids, right? Where you're just failing to kill anything for 5 days a week.
Yeah.
But if you join one of those groups that's already established,
and a lot of it, even like the dungeons, wasn't it? And the quests, it's forming a group and then not completing the dungeon was the worst because you could have already been in it for an hour.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, tanks had enough.
If you were, if you were with a bad raider, you taught them how to play.
Yeah,
that was absolutely the truth. It was like, you know what, we're not going back to town to get someone else. We're going to actually teach him how to play the game.
Well, we had a lot of. I generally viewed that my job: healer, teach the tank how much he could pull, and to watch my mana bar, and to let the DPS die horribly if they were silly. And like that, and then you'd kind of go through, and again, as we said before, and then you'd teach people, and then you'd add them to your friends list. And you haven't taught the rules and etiquette of groups. You may now join my friends list. But it was, it was the early next tier where you had a set of dungeons that were actually really hard, really hard. And then you didn't just need an okay group; you needed good players. I remember and the nice thing about, because I remember at the servers, is you would get the same kind of pub groups forming each week. And you get to Wednesday or whatever the reset day, and then it'd be. And the message would go out across the server, this group is forming, those people have come before, feel free to join. And you would, and maybe over 3 or 4 months you get this same pub group forming again and again, because it was the only way to do the raid content. So no, it was nice. Definitely a greater sense of community.
No.
And by this, go on.
I was going to say now, of course, the quests were different as well. So, for example, if you had to collect 10 buzzard gizzards.
Yep, I know what you're saying. Yep.
Every person in the party needed the 10 gizzards.
Yes.
There was none of this, one buzzard has got 7 gizzards on him kind of thing.
No. Or if you're in a dungeon, you're doing those kind of collected things, and you get the one guy running ahead, collecting them all.
Yeah.
And then you wait till he was one short and go, kick, and learn to share like a good person. In the civilized groups, we take turns.
Yes. Because there were a couple of dungeons some at a time where there wasn't enough to go around.
Yeah, I was thinking already, Nomagon wasn't there? There was like the there was clickable things you had to collect a certain number of, but only the person clicking them got them. There were a lot towards the end, but you could never guarantee getting to the end.
Gnomeregan, I mean, that was really the epitome of optional bosses.
Yes.
There were people who would go in there just to do the slime boss.
Yeah.
Because there was, I think, like the acidic swamp walker boots or whatever.
Well, there was a water breathing staff, the Hydrocane, which was quite novel.
Hydrocane, yes, because it gave underwater breathing and increased your swim speed by 30%. So it was a staff. I believe it had absolutely no stats on it whatsoever.
Yeah, I think it was just like water breathing and maybe a touch of nature resistance. But basically it had no actual combat stats.
Yeah, but the swim speed increase just meant that everyone was interested.
Yeah, but it was I said. There we are. Oh, that was changed now. Now it has crit and haste on it and water breathing.
But yeah, like when you go in Gnomeregan, the first boss, where you do almost a U-turn to the left, that always used to be optional that everyone skipped.
Yeah.
The trogs.
Yeah, where they're doing the digging or something and releasing. Yep. Yeah. Oh, and you had was it outside? I think it was Tech Bot. I think he was outside, wasn't he?
Yes, there was a boss who was technically outside. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because you had two different paths you could follow, didn't you?
Yeah, there were three entrances, I think, to Gnomeregan.
Yeah.
Because, first of all, you had to get the passes. So you'd have, like, the blue key card, the red key card, and yellow key card, and they'd each open up different doors, unless of course you had a rogue and he had his pick lock skill high enough, and you could just bypass all of that. Yeah,
and then eventually you'd get when you can complete the first time, you get the backdoor key, wouldn't you? Because then you're forming groups and going, want someone with the backdoor key, because that meant you could just go straight to the last boss.
And they kind of did a similar thing with that later dungeon as well, didn't they? In Badlands.
Yeah.
Was it All Dumb? No. Which one was that?
That was was that 30 between 30 and 40, and that had a long. I think so. Yeah, I think it was something very similar in that.
What was the name of it?
Alden was that was one of the classic dungeons, wasn't it? It was that, but it was like it was like about 33, 34, maybe.
Yeah, I'm sure that was the dungeon I'm thinking of. But there was
there was two entrances. Yes, because there was golems on the other entrance. Yeah, golem boss or something.
Yes. Yeah, if you went in through the back door, there was a golem boss right there. That's right. But you needed a key to do that. Again, or like I said, or a rogue.
Yeah.
Rogues were very useful in Classic.
Yes, and we've said because it was the chest. We actually will have to have a rogue in our group just so that the chests don't go to waste.
Mm-hmm.
That's not too bad though. It was a leatherware, wasn't they?
Most of the chests were complete garbage. So that was the thing.
Yeah,
they sometimes had one green item in. It's like roll for the chests.
That was the thing, was that it was roll for the chest, and then the rogue would go. But I'm the only one who can open them, and the only reason why you're here is because of the group. Mm-hmm. And they kind of go, and they kind of sulk, and you go, either open it and accept the roll, or leave the group. As we're getting so many very, very young children, not really realizing there are more people in the world than themselves. Funny.
Yeah, kids did love playing rogue.
Yeah.
And the thing is, as a rogue, you could do lots of sneaky stuff. Like if you saw, like a Black Lotus that you needed to pick, and you'd fly down to pick it, and then someone would start attacking you because they want to pick it as well. So you'd pop your invisibility and get out of combat. They'd be out of combat. Then you'd sap them, pick the herb, and be off. You'd be like, I don't care. You can kill me now. I've picked the herb. I've won.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're trying to farm anything, and a rogue's just sapping you and taking it for themselves and going, lol. I hope you're human and you've got that trinket, otherwise...
Yeah. It's like human perception. And
Mages
then,
with the 1 minute polymorph.
Yeah. Fun part was early on was when rogues didn't really get the idea of perception. And you're like, I can see you. I can see you moving around me very slowly.
It'd be even worse for feral druids, wouldn't it? Because you could see them a
you
mile
can see them
away.
miles away.
You're fooling nobody.
That's it.
You know, it's one of those things really in Classic. It's like, you kinda have to play a hunter as much as you want to do other things. You know, night elves are nice for the shadow meld. You know, it's useful. It's like, no, humans, you know, are just too good. You know, so if you pick a hunter, it's like perception's just ridiculous.
Yeah. It's that knowledge of all the little quirks again, is it? You're just saying there, I remember playing Hunter and going, and I get Feral Druid and going, you're a beast. I can scare you. Repeatedly.
Unfortunately, I can't quite tame you. That would be
going
a bit too far, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Feed you some meat. Until you
But yeah, that's the thing as well. Feeding your pet. I need this food to make more food.
Yeah.
And then your pet's unhappy. It's going to run off.
And it did. I lost a pet to being unhappy.
And you had to level up your pet as well. That was the other thing.
Oh, yeah. You had to go back to the low-level zones and level up your pet because it just died.
Oh. Yeah.
Now, luckily, it did level up a bit faster than you did. You know, fortunately. Could you imagine if it took as long as you did to level up? It'd be like having to level up the entire game again.
Took a while then.
Now, did it always start at level 1 when you tamed them? Or...
They had variable levels of
slightly. So if you tamed like a high level pet, it would lose a few levels, wouldn't it? But,
yeah.
You know. So right now I'm just in Arathi, you know, Highlands, because the Lord have got control of it at the moment, and I'm, you know, fighting the mobs. And then as I kill a mob, it says reputation with Ravenholt increased by 5. Reputation with Syndicate decreases by 25, and that's all it was in Classic, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, if you're like at Booty Bay, fighting the Bloodsail Pirates or whatever, which was like, you just see constant rep changes.
And there was the in the classic one. There's the centaurs, wasn't there? Desolus.
Yes. Yeah, there were 2 factions
wasteland
there, weren't there? And you made friends with one of them, and then you got a quest to kill the head of the other faction.
Yeah.
But again, the thing is, like, that was one of the zones that was entirely skippable, and so a lot of people just. You know, they're like, I don't really understand that. It's like, no one actually went to Stone Talon Mountains. It was just you know, it wasn't a fun zone.
No.
But like you said, you know, there were these sort of almost side stories going on with all the other fighting that was around in the game. And then there were just these group of centaurs that just hated this other group of centaurs.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, dragons are attacking the world and destroying everything. And it's like, no, hate these guys. More important, more important pressing matters than you know, dragons attacking. And there were things like fighting Rexar, you know, because he had the largest wonder in the history of the world. So if you had to kill Rexar, he would spawn at one end of the map and wander the length of the map to the other end of the map before this despawning. And this was like a walk that took sort of 15-20 minutes, so you had to know the route
Yeah. So then go and find
get on
them.
your mount and travel the entirety of the route. And it took 5 years. You know, it was like a 5-man quest. And then if somebody killed him in the meantime, then it was another 15 minutes until he respawned. At least then you knew where he was going to spawn.
Yeah. You got that in there. You got the Defiance Messenger, haven't you?
Yeah. Oh, that's going to be the first. That will be the first quest mob that quite possibly will have the shortest lifespan of anything ever. You know.
Yeah.
It's like he spawns and he's just dead within 2 seconds.
Yep.
And the number of people who would be like, anyone seen the Defiance Messenger? And you would always say, oh yeah, he spawns over there. And you would always tell them the wrong end of the map. The wrong end of the map.
Yeah.
That sucker.
That's it.
Yeah. You always tell him he spawns near the dungeon. It's like, nope, he spawns at the other end of the road.
I'm halfway down it already, and I'm not having you killing him.
Oh, but you remember, you know, you would do that. Like, there'd be a load of people waiting, and you'd get in a group of 5. There's no way you'd ever wait by yourself. It's like, look, let's all group up, group of 5, and then when he does spawn, you know, try and get the tag as fast as possible. And it was one of the few things that paladins were actually good for, because they put down consecration. And it was a very good way of sort of trying to guarantee actually getting the tagging the mob. Because I remember, you know, waiting for it to spawn, there'd just be mages spamming Blizzard constantly over the area.
All the joys.
The thing is, sometimes, you know, on some servers, people were patient. They kind of formed an orderly queue, and you literally saw a queue of people, one stood behind the next, and it's like, right, you know, I get the next kill.
Yeah. And it's a very civilized way to do things.
Yeah, I mean, somebody always came along and spoiled it, but you know, there were people who were civilized. And the thing was, you remembered those names.
Yeah. Thing is, many a time you get a little, you know, there'll be someone in the city forming a group, and someone else pipe up there, a ninja looter.
Yeah.
And or you join the group deliberately, and then once the group was formed and they would just set off the merry way, you'd happily point out that the raid leader was a ninja looter and encourage everyone to leave the group.
It was, you know, it was almost a naivety about it that, you know, people thought they could get away with it.
Yeah, well, this is I think it was daft though, wasn't it? A lot of it, you loot Ninja and Nixia and take everything, including obviously the 3 sets of stuff that you couldn't use. And think, what have you really achieved today, other than a moment going, haha, aren't I so cunning and devious that I've, you know, wasted the time with this group of people.
And that's really what the GMs got very angry about. You know, just resolving this constant drama.
And that's what it always was. It was a constant drama regarding loot. And that's from in guilds, in groups, and that's what always was the problem. And to be fair to as much as the whole discussion, like, oh no, kind of personal loot will be a nightmare, and yet it took away this constant negative part of the game. Which
you speak to a lot of people who play nowadays, they'll tell you, you know, personal loot was horrible. And I think if you were in a top end guild, yes, personal loot was horrible. But for, you know, 95% of the player base that weren't in that position, it was great. Yeah.
But it did. I mean, it was. You would have guilds fall apart over drama because so and so wasn't going to get the next legendary, or you know, or you were in DKP and they needed one more piece and they didn't get into the raid that week and they were the highest DKP.
Yeah.
And it was all about the loot. And in the end, going, look, it became incredibly difficult to maintain these 4
in theory, it shouldn't have been a bad thing. But I mean, I've lost count of the number of actual top guild leaders who turned out to be unbelievably corrupt.
Yeah.
You know, I remember I was in a guild, and the raid leader was, of course, the main tank, and his girlfriend was, of course, the main healer. And then, as soon as he got the last bit of gear he needed from, I think it was, not Black Temple, what was the one after Black Temple, but before Naxxramas? Oh, sorry, no, Mount Hyjal.
Yeah.
So once he got the last bit of loot he needed from Mount Hyjal, they both left the guild and joined, another guild who were making, obviously, progress more suitable for his liking, because he was like, I've got enough gear to get in this other better guild now, and it just left everyone else in the lurch. And the thing was, everyone were mates with them.
Yeah,
everyone was mates with them. Like, they could not understand why someone who was really good mates with everyone would suddenly just stab everyone in the back like that. And it's like, welcome to vanilla WoW. This is what happens with loot.
Because the problem was gearing up a tank was incredibly important so they could survive stuff. So you give them all the gear, and that's what a lot of guilds did. And then suddenly they had no incentive to raid because they had all the loot they needed, and then you'd lose your main tank, and it was a constant struggle because you'd lose your tanks and then you couldn't raid. So your raid was completely dependent on these two people. And if you didn't, so in the end, it was the moving forward, the fact they didn't need quite so much gear, so you could keep them gear hungry, so you could keep raiding. But that whole trying to hold the whole groups together, absolute nightmare.
So let's talk DKP, shall we? So, in your opinion, what was the best system for handing out loot? Now, I'm not talking best system in a perfect world where everyone's agreeable and everyone is happy waiting. I'm talking best system for a bunch of arseholes. Yeah,
that's like you said. In the perfect world, it's your loot council because they will act.
Yes,
that's not true because
everyone is understanding and everyone is technically aiming for the same goals in the game, aren't they? They all want to kill, Naxxramas. Everyone wants to clear Naxxramas. That's the whole point of Classic. But
this is it, because it really came down to two systems. I mean, it was DKP in all its varieties, but the real controversial part sometimes was how you reward. DKP worked, especially on progress, because even if you didn't get an item, you got DKP points. You got points towards buying your next item.
So for a lot of people who don't understand, so you'd get you're doing 1 point for every minute you're in a raid.
Yeah, so it stood for Dragon Kill points, didn't it? So it was there were different ways of doing it. So you earn them for a variety of ways. It could be the total time raiding. It could be total hours of doing progress. So you were looking to reward people.
You'd give people bonuses for that. So
yes,
it'd be
exactly.
It'd be a point a minute, but if you're doing a progress raid, in other words, if you're trying to take down a boss you've never took down before, you'd get 2 points a minute. And then, of course, for every boss you kill, you might get 30 or 50 points on top of that. And then if you constantly fuck up, you might lose minus 50 DKP as
the memes go. And that was the point. The idea was to encourage people to turn up on time, to perform well, and to take part in ventures that weren't necessarily going to guarantee loot at the end of it. Because a lot of time in the end, when I was running it, we didn't award DKP for farming runs because the reward for the farming run was the loot.
Yep.
You rewarded the DKP for the progress runs where people weren't going to get loot. And those ones that then turned up for the farm runs had the points to spend, and those who didn't turn up didn't have any points to spend. But you had two distinct issues. The issue one was if you did bids, because you had a scenario where on some that you was a flat cost, and the person with the best DKP won. But that could get controversial because they could save up all their points and then just pick the very best items. But that's what the system allowed. Or people would just get significantly more than others and then sit out on raids they didn't want to go into because they had enough DKP. And you had the other side of the scale where you could bid. So 1 week someone might bid, 1,000 DKP for an item because it was the very first one.
If there was one
dropped.
item that they absolutely needed above anything else, they would save up all their points to guarantee that no one else had more points than them.
Yeah.
It's like, this item will be mine.
Yeah. But then the following week, because there may be, like I say, it was a tank item, then the off tank might just pay 100 DKP for it. And then he can then go and get other items. And I always felt that intrinsically unfair because it was case someone had paid 10 times as much. So even that was quite popular with a lot of people because there were times where let's say all the mages wanted a certain item, they'd all agree between themselves not to fight over it, and one mage would bid 1 DKP and get the item. Yes,
they'd roll a D20 beforehand. Let's roll to see who wins it. And then
they're ready to go collusion. Blind bids. We've got more controversial where we like loot being shared between kind of classes. So overall, what I found fairest was a DKP system with flat costs.
Yeah, every item had a DKP cost to it.
Yeah,
and of course, if nobody had the gold for it, then it was awarded, and the person went into negative DKP.
Yeah, the tricky parts. I mean, one, I used to have a flat DKP because the thing was you'd end up with people just raiding and not buying stuff and saving up.
So you'd have a 10% decay every
exactly.
week.
So every week or month it decays. So people were constantly having to earn DKP to keep it at a certain level. Because what you didn't want was people spending all their DKP and then never ever being able to buy another item again because that disincentivized them staying in your guild. Because what you'd very find is a lot of time in mid-raid tier, people have got most of the things they need and they were hanging out for that one rare drop. And then you would have new people join. They get all the unwanted loot, go into massive minus DKP. But then knowing that they were never going to get ended again for time, they'd just then leave and take all the loot with them.
So the minus DKP would also decay.
Yeah. So in the end, we ended up saying that you had to have a certain minimum amount of DKP before you could even bid on an item to and that became the kind of trial period almost. Say, look, you have to at least prove yourself somewhat to the guild, that you're not just going to take everything on the first run and then disappear. So there are little tweaks. So flat costs, decaying DKP, rewards, bonuses and penalties were very important.
And the thing is, all of these systems was basically because you needed people to be able to trust you.
Yeah.
Because if you're joining a guild for the first time in Classic, you don't know anything about the guild. You've got no idea whether they're genuine or not people.
Yeah.
And that was the thing, and that's what created a lot of the drama. Because if you had Loot Council, they'd be like, I'm never getting anything. You don't like me. You've got.
Well, it goes to all the officers. And to be fair, to create an effective raid group, you needed carrot and stick. Mm-hmm. Some of the best performing raid guilds I read, and some of them were total arseholes. I always use the example of one group where we killed General Nazgrim somewhere. But it had been done so badly and so messily that the raid leader just disenchanted all the loot. So you're not worthy of getting the loot. We'd have gold penalties for being hit by certain mechanics. real harsh penalties. But, you need it, and it sounds quite within a game, and that's where you touch on elitist gaming, in effect, going for people just joining to play a game. That's fine, and that isn't the place for you. Those are people who are logging on and with like-minded people who want to progress, and that's 20 players who are min-maxed, who want to progress, who want to do the best. And if that's what you want, join that kind of group and deal with that kind of carrot and stick scenario. But if
I
you
just got a world drop BOE. It's like item level a 350.
Yay! Worth now.
You know, been playing this expansion for over a year, and this is the first time it happens, and it's about a year too late.
Yeah, you'd have thought, that they'd have upped those in each season, really. Going, right, okay, upped it now. Because you do, it appears, and your heart just sinks slightly, thinking, I'd get more from the random emissary bind-on pickup here than...
But anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, the long story being, drama loot, and elitist raiding. Not necessarily casual friendly. But there are some lessons to be learned that you do still need a little bit of a stick, a little bit of a carrot, and a flexible DKP system if you're going to raid. Or let's say loot council, but I do set this up the DKP system.
You know,
yeah.
I think when you're doing loot council, like you still write down every item everyone ever gets.
Yeah.
You know, because it's very easy to forget quite how much you've been giving to certain people.
Yeah.
You know, with the best will in the world, it's always the guy who gets nothing who remembers absolutely everything with regards to that.
And that was the other challenge, really, because there was a lot of organising to do in a 40-man raiding world, from recruitment officers and, statisticians, even to the DKP officers. It was a lot of work that wasn't even playing the game to enable other people to play the game.
Yeah.
So...
there was a reason officers got a few sort of bit of preferential treatment here and
there.
But, certainly, but part of it is going to be less relevant this time around. Like originally, you actually had to learn the tactics, didn't you? And we all know the tactics now. There's no trying to work out what the tactics for each of these bosses is. Like they've all been solved. So there's a lot less work for officers to do in regards to that. And like, for example, it used to be that, again, officers would have to work out what a good raid would be composed of. And we kind of know that. We know the classes who are doing the most DPS. We know the classes that will be best for the mechanics of the bosses in the games. And this was all stuff that used to have to be worked out.
Yeah. So the guides are there. The more interesting thing will be is the people who can adjust to that style of raiding, because a lot of times saying these fights are easier, and to an extent they were.
Oh, they were very much easier. I mean, I know a colossal amount of idiots in the game who were able to raid in Classic.
Yeah.
who would have no chance nowadays in comparison.
But it's balanced out. Generally, you just found that things were a lot harder hitting or more lethal.
Bosses would have one mechanic, and they would do that one mechanic over and over. There would be a Fire Lord who would drop a bomb on someone in the raid, and that person would have to run out of the raid, and that was it. There was no other mechanics to the game. Or, the boss would do a mechanic, and the tanks would have to swap. Yeah. So it was all about keeping your threat appropriately above or below.
Well, that's it. Your challenges there were exactly that. Your challenges were different then. Exactly that, in that tank threat and healer threat and DPS threat really were things you needed to look out for. So you weren't having to deal with necessarily like several boss mechanics. You were simply having to deal with raid fight mechanics that actually the AoE damage was sufficiently high that you did need resistance gear. And there's a lot of chats about people going, we're able to do without, and thinking, I think you're forgetting the sheer amount of passive damage that happened. Yes, you can step out of things, but people stepped out of things back then as well.
Yeah, like when you were fighting the bug boss in AQ40.
Yes, exactly.
They did a constant sort of poison AoE attack that hit the whole raid for I'd say probably about 10% of the health over every tick.
Yeah, it worked out rough. I remember because I had the full tier 1, and the last bonus of the tier 1 was a bonus to your prayer of healing, but you spent about 3 minutes spamming prayer of healing, and that was the fight for healers and priests.
Yeah,
literally going like, can you keep it up and for long enough that the raid actually kills them? And more often than not, 10 to 20 players left up, because again, the priests could do it more easily because we had that kind of heal, but a lot of other healers couldn't. Should we say, really struggled. And again, like you said, there, and you needed a reasonable amount of nature resistance, not as much fire resistance.
Recommended that you had 100 nature resistance for that boss.
Yes,
and the minimum you would accept somebody was at 50, but you couldn't have too many people who were around 50.
Yeah, you could get away with the tanks because they needed other things, and then your healers could just kind of heal through for them. But for your random DPS, they needed to have a flat amount, enough that you could stay ahead of the pulsing damage while you had mana. But yeah, that was good. And even you think, going back to what's the single target raid boss that we Patchwork, where it was a case of Patchwork was simply a case of keeping your tank alive long enough, because he had massive incoming damage. So you'd have healers doing downranked big heals.
I mean, that's when you needed your pally healer, strangely enough. It was the one time they would shine.
They were all good, but I mean, it was pretty fine because we had a long, slow heal that down rank and that hit really hard. But again, it's that you didn't have the add-ons to kind of anticipate the other incoming heals, or and also you're literally going, right, farm all your consumables to keep your mana going as long as possible, and then just hope that you could keep healing for, I think, about 6 or 7 minutes.
Yeah, it was what we called a DPS check, wasn't it? That.
Yeah. So it was a bit of healers and heal through. But again, these weren't hard fights by any stretch, but they were only hard because the game was less forgiving than it is now, and you didn't have the of DBM. And we had Omen threat meter as it was back then.
Yeah, it was the same difficulty for everyone. And it was fascinating because, you know, when we talk about the hardest raid dungeon in vanilla, less than 1% of the people ever got to even go through the front doors.
Yes.
Let alone kill the first boss.
Yeah, of course, because we kind of, we've touched on it briefly, achievements. Achievements were a significant thing. And achievements weren't just finish a couple of dungeons. They were, most of the time, do all the dungeons a number of times to get what you need to then step into the raid entrance. And that was the frustration, especially going to like some of the later ones where with it.
Caverns of Time attunements were particularly annoying.
Yeah,
because you had to do the first raid to get attuned to the second raid.
Yeah, I was thinking in particular it was because it was Serpent Shrine and the Eye, and you had to literally, it was like from one to the next, so you couldn't start the next raid tier if you hadn't completed the previous tier, because the attunement was based on completing the previous one a number of times. That then attuned you to the next one. But if you lost raiders with the attunement, and like you said there, it was the top 1% of players, they struggled to find new players who were already attuned. I mean, Karazhan, when it first came out, that had a long, but that was at least a dungeon.
Yes, well, it was a solo quest, and then at the end of the solo quest was a dungeon, wasn't it? So you had to run around the world, didn't you?
Yeah, I think you have to do a lot of you almost all the dungeons on hard mode to get the Karazhan achievement. Because that was a big thing when it came out. You'd have like 2 or 3 weeks in, and there would be like a very small number of players who were attuned and could actually do the dungeon. Because that was all the Mecha and Slaypen, Steamboat, Underbog, and those had on the heroic setting,
yes. Or the skull setting.
Yes,
It was called then because there'd be a big skull over the entrance.
And that's when, and those were actually hard dungeons where you would plan each pull early on.
Like Mage, Polymorph that, Hunter, Frost Trap that, Rogue, Sap that.
Yep.
Then we can take the other 2.
Yeah.
And then the one who's been sapped will then polymorph because they're on different timers. And And
Or you take the sap down first, Johnny, if you've got the other two, and then the trap, and then the polymorph, because the polymorph can be applied reasonably effectively.
And that
But
was
yeah,
it,
yeah.
you know, and that was the kind of stuff you had to do that no one's ever dreamed of doing. Like, for the
I think
last
it's funny,
5
yeah.
years of the game.
Yeah.
Like, what's this using CC? What's crowd control? Is that a thing?
Yeah, and like you said, and just knowing from the colours to be broken first, and that was the whole, you know, there's your skull, there's your X.
Skull is your target, yeah.
Yeah,
You know.
yellow was your sap, blue was your trap.
Yeah,
and then
because
you
it was frozen. That's why
Yeah,
blue.
yeah.
Blue was your trap, you know. And you had your polymorph that was, I don't know, whatever colour the mage was.
Yeah, I think it was like orange circles with the polymorph. And your mage would pull the polymorph. And then they'd rid the chap, and they'd be sapped on various bits. Yeah.
Mage would pull the polymorph and then immediately ice block to lose the aggro if there's
Yep,
any strays.
yeah. Yeah, that was the other thing, wasn't it?
And then the warrior would run in thunderclap once he was away from the polymorphed mob.
Yeah.
You know, it was an art form, pulling.
Because it wasn't about max damage, because that was irrelevant so much as tank keeping threat.
Yeah. And you wouldn't attack the mobs. You'd let the tank get a couple of sunders in.
Yeah.
You know, otherwise, you know, mobs were just flying everywhere. And the thing was, and you had to attack the skull. There was no sort of doing cleave damage and attacking something else. It was like you attack one mob and that's it. And the thing is, like, when the mage, when his polymorph broke, that was one pissed off mob.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the amount of threat that polymorph used to give in the game, people forget. I mean, that was a scary amount of threat. The mages just would be like, right, I'm off now.
Yeah, you just couldn't pull it off.
And the warrior would just be like, yeah, this thing's been polymorphed for 2 minutes, I think. I think you're...
Or the mage critting with pyro. And and you're just like, why you can't get threat back?
It was almost like watching sort of a wrestling match from the 90s with Hulk Hogan, you know, because he'd be getting beaten up and then, like, the badder guy would just suddenly punch him or something, and it's like he'd just wake up and point at them and go, "You!" like this, and he'd just come and beat the hell out of the bad guy, and that's how it was with you know, if you got a big crit as a mage, that mob was pissed off, and there was nothing the tank could do.
No, and the healer would be like, look, right, I've already got 80% threat on what's beaten up on the tank. There's no way I'm spam healing you.
That's why Mage was like, look, let's wait 2 minutes until, you know, I've got my invisibility or my ice block. I can't even remember if invisibility was in vanilla or not. I think it was.
I think it was later. I don't think it started there, but yeah.
Yeah.
They did have some kind of threat reduction.
Yeah, they had an ice block. They definitely had an ice block, but that was only if you were a frost mage.
Yeah.
Of course.
Oh, it was Warlocks had that. Yeah, they had Shatter thinking they had the threat drop as well.
Oh, really? What was that? I never knew that one. Yeah, I didn't really look
Shatter
at
something, wasn't it?
I mean, they must have had a threat drop. You know, because they're warlocks. They get stupid amounts of threat.
Yeah.
Was it maybe something where they could palm off the threat on their pet?
No, they had an actual ability that they pressed and it dropped their threat. Shatter something or something, wasn't it?
Okay.
If it was classic. But I remember because it cost Soul Shard.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so they were never big fans of it.
No. Not when you have to spend 2 minutes farming every single soul shard.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, raiding started at 7 o'clock on the dot. Apart from for warlocks when it started at 5 o'clock because they were outside farming shards for 2 hours before the start of the raid.
Obviously you'd have a raid break for everyone else. Apart from the warlocks, you'd then step outside the raid to go and farm their soul shards again.
That, yeah, the old 15-minute break. Just as the warlocks run out of shards. Oh, what a classic.
Yeah.
Absolute classic, that is. But that was one of the things, wasn't it? Because, you know, because warlocks were one of those classes where if you had more than one in the raid, they shared dots. you know, one dot would overwrite the other dot, so you never really wanted that many in the raid at all, or else they'd just lose DPS so much. So you would literally say, okay, Warlock, you're dropping out of the raid to go farm shards for an hour, we're bringing the other Warlock in, who's been waiting outside for the last 2 hours.
Yep.
And you just swap them over.
Mm. And again,
you had to be a special kind of person to be a Warlock.
Yeah,
you had to have a lot of patience for the game. You know,
Look,
it was a fun class,
summons.
but
That was why you brought the Warlock. Really, they could summon. That was it. Really, but it made people
they got a boss. They got to tank a boss as well.
Yeah, true. Yeah, later on.
That was in Black Temple.
Yeah, there were a couple. There was one in.
There was Serpent Shrine Cavern as well. They got to do one as well, didn't they? Yes, the demon in Serpent Shrine Cavern.
Yeah. No, they got a few little rolls, I think, in compensation.
And the thing is, they got to be the tank because they had just so much health.
Yep. And they could also get a show resist or fire resist, stack resist quite easily as well.
Well, they had. I'm sure they had an ability that gave them like 30 resisting everything.
Yeah.
Or something like that. If they had a certain pet out.
Yeah.
I think gave them a bunch of resists. I'm still trying to remember what ability gave the 3% hit. But you are absolutely right. I do remember there was, because there's with a lot of these things, there's a soft cap and a hard cap, wasn't there?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So there was the 3% was the soft cap,
and then if you were all buffed up, then everyone got their 6% or 5% or 7.5%, whatever you needed to cap out hit.
Yeah. And it was different for certain classes as well. So I think we did fire.
Yes, like warriors needed hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were certain classes that could not function without that hit. You know, if they missed.
Yes, mages were one, as I recall. They got very upset when they didn't have maxed out hit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was almost, I'd say, no class to which it wasn't the primary stat. Like,
this is true. Yeah,
hit it upped your DPS more than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, so the rogues, because they needed even higher for their.
Now, you needed more hit on raid bosses because, of course, they were considered like 2 or 3 levels higher.
Yes, yeah, 3 levels higher.
So the dungeons, the 5-man dungeons, wasn't so bad.
No.
But like the raid bosses were considered level 63, I believe, in Classic.
Yes, 3 levels higher generally.
Whereas the dungeon bosses were I think they were all 60. I can't think of any dungeon bosses that were above 60. Unless they were like a level higher on heroic.
Yeah. There was the odd bit, but I think for classic, yeah, you're right, they were like box standard 60s. So,
but let's talk, you know, let's talk raids where your group just didn't quite get it. You know, like there was, like, you know, we're talking sort of Onyxia level
Yeah.
stuff with, you know, the whelps.
Or the fact that deep breath is a thing to look out for and not just stand shooting the big dragon in the sky in the middle of the room. The reason why everyone else ran to the wall. Trying to think from the original. Let's have a look.
Oh, well, you know, I've given you personally this example before, but of course, Naxxramas doing the dance boss was a good example of this, because there was no timer on this stuff. And I remember doing this with my raid group at the time, and there was myself, and there was the main tank called Silks. And there was this mage, this fire mage called Adam, who's a very good fire mage. And I was Pally Healer, and everyone else died on the dance boss, and there were just the three of us left. And we just said, right, you're now all going to stay dead for the next 25 minutes as we just take this boss down between us. Because, you know... because mage isn't going to take any damage. I can easily heal the tank. Because this was the time when paladins never ran out of mana. You know, there was a time where you just had bottomless mana. You regenerated faster than whatever it was you were casting.
Yeah.
And for the next 25 minutes, the three of us just danced and killed the boss. You know, because people were like, you know, let's go get the immortal title. It's like, you know, this is never going to happen if you can't even, if you're dying on this boss. It's like, come on, and you want to get immortal? Come on, be realistic here. Yeah.
No, we did that. We just got everyone who couldn't do the dance to stand out of the dungeon while we did it, and invite them back in afterwards.
Because that was the thing, you know, you could do it with just three people.
Yeah. You know, the earliest thing in Blackwing Layer already, because again, we've talked about it before now, it's where there were no instructions. I remember even the first boss.
The first boss was really hard in Blackwing Lair. Oh boy, like you know, for those who don't understand, it was a mind control boss.
Mm-hmm.
And so it had just awful mechanics.
Yeah, you had lots of eggs in the room that could only be destroyed by the mind control boss. And you
so
destroy
at one
the
end
eggs.
of the room was an orb.
Yep.
And the idea was that somebody clicks on the orb and takes control of the boss. And then the boss runs around, killing all the eggs.
Yep.
But the rest of the raid had to keep him alive.
Yeah. Whilst increasing numbers of, you know,
yes,
orcs and dragon slayers and things all
pile through the door to try and kill you. Yeah.
Yeah. So ironically, you're having to keep a dungeon raid boss alive. But these mobs did too much damage and had too much health to kill.
Yeah.
You couldn't kill them. So, and the mobs that were either dragons that hit really hard and had lots of health, or kind of infantry that did extra damage to dragons. And I think what I've said before, how it should work and how it was created all these mobs. So you'd have the hunters with their frost traps and their run speed, chaining and all these mobs around. But the difficulty there was keeping the aggro off the healer.
Yes.
Who was trying to keep everyone else alive. And then obviously shamans could slow them down with their slowing effects and things. And we did this first time round by mind controlling all the infantry to tank the dragons, because they could, because they did extra damage. Which was not in any shape or form one of the tactics on paper, but that was how we got our first kill, by completely changing our raid setup and creating our own tactic. And in the end, they made it easier for to actually do their kiting and stuff because that was how it was supposed to be done. But again, it's literally 7 into that dungeon the first time and having no idea how to do it.
But there were so many raids who never got past that fight.
No.
You know, you'd see them forming, and they'd all go in there, and you'd beg for an hour to get a key off someone to let them in.
Yeah.
And they'd go do the first boss, and they'd never get past it because there were just too many people who could not comprehend the tactics.
Yeah. And then you have the next one, which was an insanely high DPS rest. Where
yes, where the boss would basically say, "Look, you need to run away because I'm going to kill you all."
Yep.
And you'd have to kill him, and his damage would just go up, wouldn't it? He'd gain stacks.
Yeah, and he put something on the player, so you loot. The players would blow up. There was nothing you could do about it. So you were constantly losing players and trying to beat this DPS timer. Mm-hmm. And then the next one was like a gauntlet boss, wasn't it? The brood layer. Yeah. There was like a gauntlet of root spawning mobs across the room. And then you had the inimitable fire maw, which had the line of sight. So if you were a guild with a dwarf tank, you had distinct problems because the tank wasn't tall enough to tank the boss. So we ended up with our tank having to take giant growth potions to be able to tank it.
The reason was he was a dwarf tank because you needed the fear ward and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You needed. Dwarves had an ability to got rid of poisons.
Yeah, poison and
skin.
bleeds. Yeah.
So if you were a tank, you had to have that stone skin buff for a few fights.
That's
It's
it.
really helpful.
Yeah, that's it. Their kind of racial was actually a really good tanking racial. It's just their size wasn't hopeful. And the Chromo Magus, which was on the early fights, that actually had a lot going on. And Nefarian, again, that was a boss with a lot going on as well. And you had to farm. That was it. You need the Onyxia cloak to do Nefarian. Because if you didn't have it, you kind of died fairly quickly until someone discovered there was like one spot in the room where people without the cloak could hide.
You hide behind the throne.
Yeah, but that wasn't, no one knew about it until it was found by accident, a lot later on. Until then, you had to have this cloak or you died straight away.
Yeah. And you have to ask yourself whether Blizzard deliberately put that little hidey spot in the game. Whether they went, okay, you've got to do this, that, and the other, but they went, hee, but the smart guilds will work out that they don't need this and can hide here.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It kind of makes sense that it was there.
Yeah, you've got to remember, Blizzard loved Easter eggs.
Yes.
There were a lot of times where the players would abuse mechanics in the game, right?
Yeah.
But there were other times where Blizzard genuinely went, you know what, if you're smart, this is going to take you 5 minutes instead of 25 minutes.
I think this was it. Because there were no kind of rule books, they weren't too concerned that if one guild came up with something creative, that it was going to spread or like wildfire and everyone was going to do it. So they were and they didn't have, a lot of these fights, they didn't have a designated way to do it. So you were just encouraged to find whatever way worked for you. So yes, but maybe in that sense, maybe they'd provide an alternative way of doing it if you could find it.
I mean, because it was something that was never patched out. If it was something they truly didn't want in the game, you'd get the idea that they'd patch that out. Because, these cloaks were not easy to farm.
No, well, you only got a certain number of the scales that would drop from Onyxia, so you'd only, with each kill, you could only, again, it was a time game of another form, you could only maybe make 4 or 5 of the cloaks. And bear in mind, you needed a 40-man raid, so it took quite a long time to make sure that all your raid was kitted out.
And it gave shadow resistance as well, the cloak.
I think it was fire resistant.
Could have been fire, yeah. It could have been fire.
It gave you immunity to Nefarian's Shadow Flame.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the purpose of it, really, because they had no stats on it or any notes. So You could use because this was also it was transferable because a lot of the bosses did have flame damage, so you could stick your cloak on to help with the stats on the cloak, but it had no other kind of combat stats on it. But it was mainly for this Nefarian fight, so that you could kind of stand elsewhere in the room. Because you had to split into two sides on the room, if I remember rightly, and deal with two different types of mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it was. But again, as you get the sense here, a lot of these fights were gated just by the fact that you would have to do previous raid bosses several times to get the gear or the access or the achievement or whatever else to do the next raid tier bosses. Whereas, Blizzard's current idea being now that really you should be able to step into the next raid tier without having to farm the previous one several times.
Just do a few world quests and and you'll be up to speed on that.
Yeah.
So honest question, how many times do you plan to do Diamol?
Now there's a problem here because there are certain consumables that are required from that particular wonderful, wonderful dungeon. Some of them being quite random because there isn't like a shoulder enchant, if I remember rightly from there. Amongst other things, the loot was thankfully for me as a raider wasn't so bad.
No, there was a couple of pieces of gear that gave fire resistance or
and some nature resistance. Yeah, I think it was mainly the nature resistance farming it was needed for.
But that was only one of the wings, though. Again,
yeah, and there was some like bind on pickup tubers or something other things as well. There were I will do it the bare minimum times.
maybe 5.
Yeah, I have a feeling a little bit more than that. I think as you remember as well as I do, don't you? You were farming these dungeons constantly.
But it was more certainly for the Alliance that first of all it was not an easy dungeon to get to.
No.
If you wanted to do Diamol, you get your group, and then it'd be 25 minutes getting there.
I think at least remember, by the end of it, it was only really one wing that you really needed. I can't remember which one it was, but you had the 2 or 3 easier wings, and you kind of only had to do those once or twice.
And there was a world boss there as well.
Yeah,
a PvP world boss. So it was quite the scary place, really.
Yeah.
But no, you're absolutely right. Who truly did the tribute runs in that place?
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, you could basically skip almost every boss in the game through a clever mechanic. So, for example, one of the bosses, you could farm an item. I think you could cook some food or something. You'd put the food down on the ground, and the boss would come over to eat it, and he'd get trapped.
Yes.
And then you could skip past him.
Yeah, there were different. It worked. There were several guards or things, weren't there? So you could put a beer down.
Yeah,
one you
that's
could
it. Yeah, you'd get him drunk and he'd start singing, wouldn't he?
Yeah. There was another one where a certain classic could fix the trap. So I think if you had a hunter or a blacksmith,
your blacksmith could craft an item that you would place down.
Yeah.
And the whole idea was you'd incapacitate all of these bosses, and then when you beat the final boss of the Ogre Wing, you became the new Ogre Lord.
Yeah.
You
Ogre
became king of the ogres by killing the previous king of the ogres in much the same way goblins always did it.
Yeah. But you had a choice of, if you killed these mobs, they dropped green loot. And then obviously if you kept them alive to the end, then the loot steadily improved.
They gave you something afterwards.
Yes.
They were like, thank you for not killing me. Here you go, boss. Have this.
Yeah. I think, to be fair, if I remember right, there was nothing in it for me as a priest.
Yeah.
But there were for some classes, there were items, because I remember there were people who would regularly do this maxed out tribute run.
Yes, and it had to be maxed out. That was the thing.
Yeah.
You know. But again, this was like, you know, the first time you do these raids or these dungeons, you'd never think it was a thing. It'd never occur to you. It was almost like I said, it was an Easter egg.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I know people who did this dungeon like every week for 30 weeks, and they never knew it was a thing.
Yeah. Well, it's like it was again that rewarding you, because you did either have to have a certain class set up or farm certain gear to be able to do this tribute run. And it did
But
take
it was never made obvious
that
it was a thing. It was never made obvious that there were alternative ways to kill these bosses. You know, it was such a unique thing at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I can't actually imagine. Think about it. Let's say you're a developer and you're making a first MMO for the first time. Why would you even think that this should be a thing? You know, like you have to be a real out of the box thinker. You know, this is what we forget a lot about the people who made classic WoW. Yeah. Like the kind of stuff they came up with. You know, this is stuff we take for granted now in every game, but this was genuinely. There's a reason WoW became a massive game, because it was so unique. A lot of the stuff that was in the game, you know, this was all stuff they thought up.
Yeah, they were prepared to kind of listen, because this all came about because you had obviously a small percentage of the players getting into the raid. So this was the idea: they'll come up with a dungeon with increasing difficulty that would reward dungeon players with something unique or different that they could stand in Ironforge and go, look at me, I got this. We did the tribute run. We've got the buff saying we're Ogre King for the day.
Yeah, look at me. Like I'm wearing armor that doesn't make me look like a clown as opposed to the rest of you.
Yep.
Let's face it, you know, mix and match.
Yes, yeah. Stats, non-appearance. Transmogging wasn't a thing. You were either a pink paladin or or a priest with shiny shoulders.
Well, that's how you knew a paladin was good. You know, as soon as they got those shoulders, you know.
They were a pink Power Ranger. They could heal.
I mean, that's how you knew someone was good at the game, was by the armour they wore.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking, wasn't it? If they were decked out in epics, you knew they were good. Oh, here's the story you were talking about before. Method announces race to world first.
And which site's that on?
Wowhead. Classic Wowhead. Classic.wowhead.com. Method and the World Showdown of Esports have partnered to produce the classic race to world first. So how long are they expecting that this will take them?
Oof, wow, cool. That's a tough one. So to get to level 60, 3 weeks?
Yeah, now here we go. What makes this race different is that than the other Method World First races is how much impact the World First kills. Reaching level 60 is no small feat, and the coverage for this event is planning to last from August 26th to September 2nd. So they're expecting it to be 8 days from full level gear and kill.
Best of luck to them. Well, the thing is, the actual kill itself, quite easy.
Yes.
It's not a difficult dungeon. But getting to 60, it turns out is quite difficult.
Well, and getting the achievement. And I'm sure, if I remember rightly, not all the bosses were immediately available in Classic about watering various runes. Dousing runes in molten
Yeah,
core.
there were 2 or 3 runes you had to douse.
Yeah. Yeah, because in the end you got a quest reward at a certain level of reputation from the Fire Lords that meant you could douse the runes each week. But until then, you had to get, I think.
Well, you had to farm rep with the Hydraxian Water Lords, or whatever they were called.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. And you got that a lot of time from killing bosses in Molten Core.
But you could also
quests.
go to Ashara, couldn't you? There was a few
Yeah.
mobs you could farm there.
Yeah.
Well, I say a few mobs. It'd be a lot of mobs you'd have to farm there to get the rep. And I'm sure that the rep stopped at either friendly or honoured. And then you had to go into Molten Core to get the rest of it.
Yeah.
This was a clever system. Silithus. So in Silithus, there were lots of mobs in the whole zone, and if you killed them, you got rep. But then, as soon as you hit Honoured, you stopped getting rep for them, and you could only get the rep for doing the actual raids, AQ20 and AQ40. So it was a fascinating system. So it rewarded you for doing a bit of farming beforehand because you got the reputation before everyone else.
Yeah, because the other part was your quests generally would give you reputation all the way through. So you end up farming the mobs first to get to the kind of honoured bit. Then you do your quests because that get you to almost revered.
Yep.
And then you'd do your bit to, but like I said, so you get to revered, and then you'd have the real grind over to exalted. One of the reasons why I will miss playing a human as I had to play a dwarf priest, because it just made that work grind just a little bit more bearable.
Well, it made it 10% more bearable.
That was it. But typically it was about a month to go from basic to exalted. So yeah.
But again, if it's only one person who needs that rep, right?
Yeah.
So they're not gonna insist that it's the tank that does that.
No.
He's got other things to do. He's going to be grinding.
But I'm guessing,
constantly.
they won't have that on the first one. You have to kind of get this item, then dash over to the Hydraxian Warlords, pick up water, douse a rune, kill a boss, go back, pick up the water.
So again, there'll be quite a few people who, they'll be like, right, okay, we've got a raid of 40 people, but we need 50 people because 10 of you are going to be just doing nothing but farming mats. You're going to be making level 20 warlock alts to teleport people around the world. There's like it's a world first race which will be ridiculous in its scale for that reason, because WoW is a game where everyone can get to do everything. It is simply the time that is the restriction of the game.
Yeah, but all those who are just in the Eternal Palace bit are going, what another 7 days or 8 days in Germany? I'm guessing the payout was worth it last time.
With Method, I think it's less about getting the payout and more just saying, F you to Red Bull.
Yeah.
Because the last thing anyone needs is sort of Red Bull, sort of taking over, because it's something Red Bull do in a lot of different areas. For example, there are the soapbox races which are sponsored by Red Bull, the Red Bull soapbox races, and sort of everyone just associates this. I wouldn't say Red Bull sponsors them. Red Bull own the races. And these become, the thing to do for people who, like that kind of thing. Likewise, they do the thing with the airplanes over the water, flying around the courses. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that they try to take over. They try to become the brand for that particular thing.
Yeah.
And if that was to happen with Warcraft, it would be, quite bad for Warcraft. But the thing is, Blizzard love it because whenever you're a big business, you want to associate yourself with other big businesses, so you can both expose each other to each other's clientele. If you it's beneficial for both parties to be associated with each other. Your personal prestige goes up by being associated with other successful companies.
Yeah.
So at the last world first race, which was the one that Method won, if you went onto the front page of the Blizzard app on the desktop, there was an advert for the Red Bull World First Race, which linked to the Red Bull Twitch account, which had about 4,000 people watching, whereas the Method one had about 60,000 people watching. And so, thank God Method won there, because if Method had lost, then that was it. Come the next world first race, everyone would be watching the Red Bull channel rather than, Method's channel. That's just how it is. Second place is nowhere. Second place is first loser, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And you're only as good as your last run. People have such a short memory when it comes to stuff like this.
Absolutely.
So, in that regard, very happy that, Method won. I think it is what is best for everyone. And, of course, they get a bit more money out of it, which is fine. I'm fine with people making money. But I'm not fine with someone like Red Bull sort of coming in and wanting to take everything over. They always have their own reasons for doing it. I think because they're probably too politically correct for my liking. Big corporations are very unforgiving when it comes to people making mistakes in their life. Like, for example, PewDiePie's a good example of this, because he got dropped by Disney.
Yes.
Because he said some very stupid things. However, people can and will always change, and people can say stupid things in the heat of the moment that they don't believe. It's the understanding that human beings make mistakes.
Yeah, this point,
and a
none
corporation
of us,
will never forgive you for that.
No, we're all at some point going to make a mistake. For most of us, that
we're
mistake
going to
is
get
private.
angry. We're going to say something stupid,
or we're just young and silly.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
either way, for most of us, it's said privately, or no one cares. But as we know, everything is forever on the internet, and with enough people looking for something to find, they'll find it. And then in this politically correct world, no matter whether we care or not, can you be seen to be affiliating yourself with someone who has whatever view, however,
Well, it's not even that it's a view. It can simply be that they said something at the time that was politically incorrect, but it was took out of context. That's a good example of something. Things can be took out of context that sound extremely offensive. Like two people can have an in-joke with each other that to a third person it looks like they both hate each other's guts.
Yeah.
And when you have companies like Red Bull who, want to take over sort of an entire genre of gaming and then sort of craft it in their own image, it stops people from being themselves.
Yeah.
Gamers are, on the most part, idiots who open their mouth before saying things. It's just, it's because in sort of the last 20 years, there's never been any repercussions for that.
Yeah.
There's never ever been any repercussions for saying something on the internet in the middle of a game of Call of Duty or something. But now there kind of is.
And if we're being, like you said, if we're being stereotypical, the gamers traditionally have been younger rather than older people. Although obviously, in the main, there will be older players with a smaller demographic, and then they will perhaps also been less socially aware because they spend a lot of time gaming.
Less exposed to real life.
Yes.
And the understanding that actions have consequences.
Yeah. And then combine that further with the likes of streaming and Twitch, and suddenly a much more higher visibility. Put all those together, and there are going to be lots of people who are going to get caught out because of it. But when you actually go back and apply those factors and think, well, actually, exactly that, are these, the genuine actions, views, beliefs of this person, or is this,
I mean, when you look at somebody like PewDiePie, who's probably, I don't know, streamed at least 10,000 hours. Oh, I've died somehow. I wasn't paying attention to what was going on there. What did I die to there? Was I stood in poison? Yes, I was stood in poison. So, someone who's maybe streamed like 10,000 hours over the past 9 years in their life.
Yeah.
And yeah, if he's never said anything stupid in his entire life, I would be amazed, That there's no way you can survive 10,000 hours without saying something controversial in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
So the fact that we have these corporations who will then quite simply say, unforgivable.
Yeah.
You can never be given a second chance.
Well, yeah, it still comes down to the money, doesn't it? Their risk of the financial impact on their business of being associated with that other person. We still go back to the James Gunn part, don't we? Going, Disney dropped the huge outcry and people going, well, we're not going to have this film and however many millions it makes without him. And then slowly it snuck back in. Yeah. And that potentially is the ultimate
what happened
forgiveness.
What happened was basically people went, you know what, we like money. We like money more than scruples. We got rid of him because we thought that would make us the most money, but now we realise that keeping him will make us the most money.
Yeah. And they thought they gained the kudos from there was also the backlash, and everyone assuming that in all situation everyone drops it like a hot rock, and that they come out to seem to be doing the good thing and they're fine, and what actually happens, people went, no, actually that's not representative of his
beings and make mistakes.
Yeah.
And, we're not necessarily condoning what he said, but we just think that it's stupid that somebody's entire livelihood should be put at risk for saying one thing.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to a lot of the time.
Yeah.
It's like, was there actual hatred or malice in what he said, or is in his actions, or was he just stupid?
Yeah.
And I think that's where we're at right now. But again, like you said, Disney would have never reversed the situation unless they thought there was more money in it for them to do so.
Yeah. I think you had the point where a lot of the cast were like, we're not really prepared to do another one of these.
Dave Bautista came out and said, this guy taught me more about acting than anyone else I've ever been with in the entirety of my life.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm going to abandon him.
Yeah.
He got me the role as Drax in the first film, and it was his big break, and it's like,
that was his career. Yeah.
There will not be a third movie with me in it without him directing. But this is how it is. If a company like Red Bull gets hold of the whole world first thing and makes it their thing, you know, they are a company that is entirely reliant. Well, you know, image is a huge thing for them. That's why they didn't want to do business with Method in the first place, because Method insisted on keeping the IP.
Yeah.
Method said, you know, this is our intellectual property. We're going to own it, and we're going to decide who gets invited and who doesn't. And Red Bull was like, no, we're going to decide who gets invited.
Yeah.
And Method just weren't happy with that. It's like, you know, we don't want you sanctioning, you know, suddenly deciding that one of our raiders isn't allowed in anymore.
Yeah.
You know, because you've deemed he's said something that's unacceptable.
Yeah.
You know, gamers should be allowed to, you know, carry on being gamers, you know, and let the market decide. If somebody does do something completely heinous, then they're still going to get shunned by everyone. You know, all these people watching still have morals.
Yeah.
You know, we can all make those decisions for ourselves. We don't need a big, you know, multinational company to make those decisions for us.
Yeah.
I think that's half of it, isn't it? It's like we can think for ourselves. Thank you very much.
And like we discussed before, and there's an element of it in terms of the sponsorship, the ability for them to choose whichever sponsors they want versus the sponsors that Red Bull wants, and ensure that. I mean, because we kind of forget, but for these people that we are watching for entertainment within this, even though we consider it a game, they, you know, have taken off significant times of their life to do this event, and also to prepare for these events and the sheer time commitment that they've given. So I've got no qualms if we find a measure of entertainment like we would any other kind of sportsman or comedian or entertainer, for them being paid for their time, quite rightly. And like any other kind of employee, then if they want to, you know, get the best, you know, salary they can, go for it. But if, you know, and then because it's free entertainment to us, and other than our time. And on that note, however, it is time for me to hit the sack.
Lovely stuff. I'm going to keep going for a bit longer.
Sure.
So how are we going to do things on release day? So here you go, last question. I mean, are we just going to assume that the servers won't be up when they say they're going to be up?
I was about to say, I guess we're going to log on, get a coffee, and have a good chat while we try to get on. I mean, there's a certain thing, because you're going to be starting off as a human, and I'm starting off as a dwarf, so we'll have to do a minimal amount of something to get to each other. But I'm guessing I'll be heading over to you, since the human area is somewhat more enjoyable than the dwarf.
You've got stockades at later levels, obviously. You know, we've already talked about you've got Hogger. You know, you get to fight Hogger. There's lots of good fights to be had in the human starting areas. And you get to do Lakeshire,
and it's much more accessible. You don't have to go up and down mountains and things.
And the actual run, let's see. So dwarf starting area, and then you run out. You go through the cave.
Yeah.
Now you need to have a couple of levels to get through that cave without dying.
That's it. It'll surely take about.
And then you get
15.
to the inn, and then you can run up into Ironforge and get the tram.
Yeah.
So it's about half an hour run, I'd say.
Yeah. I think we've got a little bit of flexibility, because it really comes down to is when we're both nearing, kind of getting ready to head over towards Moonbrook and prepare for getting into Deadmines.
You can't be more than sort of one level apart, really. You know, you have to be doing the quests at the same time, and of course, to do the quests, you've got to be high enough level to pick up the quests. Because that's the one. People will be like, okay, let's do this quest, and it's like, I need to grind another half a level to be able to.
It's within 3 levels, and it's that difference between red, yellow, and green, isn't it? Whether you are.
Some of the quests, you only get at like level 18. A person will not talk to you until you're level 18. So if you're level 17 and a half, that's it. You go hit some more mobs. Yeah. Because you're not going to do every quest twice. Yeah. Once for you, once for your mate, once he's caught up half a level. No. Yeah. So it's kind of important that side of things. I mean, if you can stay on the right side, in other words, as you said, do the quests in the zones where you're fighting against mobs of the same level, then you'll always get quests you can pick up. But if you decide to sort of rush ahead to sort of escape the traffic, so to speak, then there's a risk that you're going to end up doing quests where you're not ready for them yet.
Well, the tricky part that they've gone back with the beta was finding that if you're grinding too many mobs, then the quests were dropping down to green, and it was just taking longer to level. So
you got no XP for green at all.
Yeah,
that's very much the case. I mean, that's when you just you go, okay, it's just time to go to the next zone, really.
Yeah.
Now, there was a time where you could fight green mobs, and there were certain mobs which were really easy to kill. I mean, like, stupidly easy to kill. And you could just round up 1,000,000 of them, and you knew you could get more XP doing that than going to the harder zones. That's very much your case. And it's certainly, if you've got something like skinning, then maybe it's beneficial just to kill lots of easier mobs and get that skinning skill up.
That was it, or like some of the humanoid clumps, but if you were farming the low-level cloths.
Yes, the cloth from the humanoids, of course. You needed a lot of cloth.
Yes, because you needed 4 or 5. To start with, there was a couple of the level, but it incrementally increased in it to just actually make the cloth for crafting from the cloth that dropped.
Yeah.
I suspect it won't be as bad as we think, because these full servers aren't full. They just have people have made 3 characters on them. I wonder if Blizzard have differentiated between accounts and characters in terms of how full these servers are.
Well, I think that you will be able to make more than 3 characters.
Yes.
Just that you can only reserve 3 names. Yeah. So I think the starter zones will always stay busy, over time as people make alts and stuff like that. But I think you're absolutely right that... you know what? I think probably they've applied the same rules they did originally to a server. They probably wanted to make it as authentic as possible.
Yeah, it would make sense.
In
which case it'll be,
But the thing was, they actually came out and they said it's more of a problem when everyone is in one zone. So, like a low population server, if everyone is in the same zone, is more of a strain on the servers than a high pop where everyone's spread out over the entirety of the map. So I think once the first 2 weeks are out of the way and people's all over the place, the server will be fine. But for that first few days, it'll be pretty crippling. I think especially when you get to Darkshire, because there's certain fights in Darkshire, like on Patch Stitches or whatever his name was, where you're waiting for him to spawn, and there's literally 50 other people waiting for him to spawn.
Yeah, there were a lot of grindy ones in Lakeshire as well, like Murlocs. Kill a lot of these to get a certain drop, not just kill a number of mobs, but get for drops.
The gnolls, weren't there? There was it gnolls?
There was a lot of gnolls at slightly higher level.
Low, yes, the high level gnolls around the back of Lakeshire, but they were on a really slow spawn. Oh god! Like if there were 4 groups of 5 people there, like you just all of you would just be stood around just waiting for one to spawn.
Yeah. So
I remember times.
Some merit,
I remember times where you'd find one on a 3-minute spawn, and you just stay there. You wouldn't move. You'd just be like, right, this is our mob.
Yeah.
And we're just going to kill it every 3 minutes until we've killed it 10 times.
Yeah, I remember finding that. Yeah, I'm more inclined to kind of just at least get out of the starter zone, and I think once you've done that, then
Well, the
it
starter
should.
zone will be sharded, so in that
Yeah.
respect, it'll be a lot better, you know. But it's I'm more interested where the sharding stops, you know, which
Yeah, yeah.
point. I mean, I think we can all accept that the inn will be sharded. So,
Yeah, I'll save that.
so like all of that zone, I think will be sharded, but it's just whether the zones to the left and the right, Westfall and Lakeshire, will also be sharded. That's the one.
Yeah.
I think Westfall surely must be sharded because I remember that from vanilla, and that got busy.
Yeah.
You know, that was literally 100 people waiting for the Defias messenger to spawn.
Yeah, I'm thinking that could be, yeah. And you think about the zone with the first dungeon. Yeah.
I think maybe the sharding could stop around Lakeshire. It's possible. I don't think there'll be any sharding for wetlands.
It's weird because I'm thinking about in Darkshire that the grave churchyard was almost like a hub. You kind of went to town, picked up a set of quests that took you back to the graveyard, and then you go back and then back for another set. And then you kill one set of mobs for a quest, and then 2 quests later, you'd be going back to kill the same mobs for a different drop from the same mob. So I could very much imagine, yeah, maybe it would definitely be a bit that would require sharding, because that'll get quite busy.
But, you know, we can have this conversation quite a few times over the next week while we prepare for what we're doing.
Yeah. A lot of it, like you said, is having a bit of a plan so that you're ready to roll on and kind of get stuck into it.
Well, I certainly think Molten Core in 8 days is optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, they've obviously done the maths. They've decided how many hours it's going to take each day to, you know, level up.
Yeah. They've done the meter. They've got a very clear idea that...
Did they, did they mention whether they're playing on a PvE, PvP server? I assume they're doing Horde as well.
Yeah, good question. I would presume
or
if
maybe
it's not
they
the
want paladins. Who knows? Do they want paladins or chamois? That's the question. What would you have, paladins or chamois?
Well, we talked about this, didn't we? And I said the thing was in Classic there was no enrage timers, so your
Bloodlust was less of a thing.
That was it. Bloodlust was useful, but wasn't necessary to down the boss. Well, your more challenges were your tanks surviving stuff, or your raid surviving stuff. So the extra health from kings, I think, in the early, like I said, once you're on farm, that's where Bloodlust is great because you're able to kill the bosses quicker.
But
there you go.
Wind Fury totem, Wind Fury.
Yeah. So again, all kind of DPS increases, but early on you could, as they rightly said, you could out heal a lot of challenges just because it was more about surviving the incoming damage than downing anything quickly. So I can very much imagine there being healer heavy and kind of the paladins being the slow and steady way to go. Don't get me wrong, if it's simply a case of they both take 3 days to get through, and then they literally like the raid at the same time, then you could argue maybe shamans give an edge there and get stuff down quickly, but I don't think it would quite be like that, especially since they're not going to have any guaranteed, because again, gearing up the likes of your tanks and the fact that you can't guarantee that you're going to get the drop you want. Your tank needing that particular shield or that particular weapon, and maybe having to do a number of runs of the to get those best in slot dungeon pieces. Like I said, I very much imagine they'll have a very large team funneling resources to their crafters.
Now, the dungeons you could reset over and over again.
Yes, yeah.
I think you were restricted to something like 3 resets in a 2-hour period or something.
Yeah, it was like between 3 and 5 resets
because there were certain people who just wanted to do like the first boss in a dungeon and then go back in, reset it, and do it again. So you may indeed, everyone will. I think this is an interesting one. It's like everyone's only going to have time to level up one character. So there's going to be none of this sort of doing alt runs and funneling stuff from raids to the main characters. It's like you've got your one character and then that's it.
Yeah. So, like I said, your only real funding will come from people supplying resources, really, and enchants and stuff from other characters.
Yes,
I said that. Like I said, your raid will be mainly consisting of warrior tanks, priest healers, and mages, and then one of whatever relevant buff you. Although interestingly, again, isn't it? The bosses will have resists again because that was the major angst of the mages, wasn't it? They couldn't play fire in Molten Core.
Yes.
I remember that.
I mean, and you can't play Arcane full stop as mage.
No,
Arcane's completely unplayable as an option. So
so you have to play the PvP spec.
Frost was okay. It was okay.
You got to Blizzard, the trash packs.
You're basically casting Frostbolt over and over again.
Yeah.
There wasn't really much else you could do because I think there was a debuff you could apply that helped increase your frost damage, but that debuff didn't apply to bosses. I think there was something called chill or deep chill or something like that.
Yeah.
It was pretty annoying, that aspect of the game, raiding as Frost. But yeah, it was the only option because there were literally 2 bosses in Molten Core who were immune to fire damage. I think people used to have to port back to town, switch specs, and then get summoned back again.
Yeah.
That's how it was.
Otherwise, they were
we're
doing
all
nothing.
looking forward to that, aren't we?
Yeah. Right. Definitely heading to bed. But yeah, we've got a few things to iron out, and then on the night we're ready to roll with our professions. And
now, is it coming up at midnight or?
It is 11 o'clock for us, so maybe get a little bit of a taste of viewing before back to beddy bows.
Here we go. Let's have a look here. Just looking at the release time. Release is August 27th. Global release schedule. Okay. So, in London, as you said, 11 p.m. British summertime. In Paris, it's coming out at 12 a.m. CEST. So that's the same time for us.
Yeah.
And in America, New York, 6 p.m. That's on the East Coast. On the West Coast, Los Angeles, 3 p.m. That's just about time people get out of bed, isn't it? It's like it's 3 p.m. Maybe it's time to wake up now and play some games. So they're in heaven, really, there. But as you said, London, 11 p.m. It's whether I want to do an all-night stream. I'm probably gonna play till what? So it's coming out on a Monday though. Again, it's really awkward. If it was like a weekend, you could go, let's do a late night session till 3 a.m. or something. But Monday's not really ideal for that. So you're thinking that I should maybe play an alt and then start with you maybe around sort of 6 o'clock on the Tuesday, or do you think you'll get some time off?
I should. I'm planning on rescheduling normal life slightly.
So you got the first couple of days, yeah.
Exactly that. I get the first couple of days, get a bit of a crack in, and
palm off the kits on whoever wants them.
Yeah, and to be fair, I'm lucky in terms of the family dynamic. Like I say, as you know, I have additional supports available on that kind of Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays, so that falls quite well for me.
It's funny because again, this is part of the throwback, isn't it? Sort of
Yeah.
planning your entire life around World of Warcraft. This is like
That was it.
this is what you did 15 years ago, and it's all
That's it.
part of the experience.
Do you leave on Friday evening to see the girlfriend? Or you go, I'll see you Saturday morning. That way I can fit in my Friday night raid.
Of course, if you're really lucky, your girlfriend played with you.
Yeah. But it's the difference then going, you're a raider. You didn't raid like 2-3 nights a week. You raided 5 nights a week at least.
That was, this was one of the things, wasn't it? People were like, oh, you're a raider. Here's somebody using a fishing bot, so I'll just report them. Yeah. I always do this. Report for cheating using fishing bot in remote location. And you can you can always tell they're a bot, because if I was to get on my mount here, I get on my woolly mammoth and just stand over the bobber, oh, got attacked by a fish. See, normally they bugger off, see if so as you can see, the bobber cannot be seen, and they don't try to fish it. It's like this. There you go. Yeah. Like this add-on, as soon as it can't see the bobber, it just tries to recast, because it's basically, as soon as it recognises the bobber, it can click on it. But you see, any person, if this was a person, they'd be telling me to piss off at this point, right? But they're not. They're just constantly recasting the bobber.
Yeah.
And surely somebody would have just flown away if this was an actual person.
Yeah.
And this is how you know they're a bot. Because people set up phishing bots, and the thing is, it's not even worth it anymore. But I always report them, because this is always the spot they pick. And they're level 110 as well, so they're not even level 120.
No, you wouldn't. You'd be sat there 110 foot.
Why are you not out leveling up? Why are you there fishing? So I always report them for cheating. Basically, there are all they do is they set up a fishing bot and then just sell all the materials. And the plan is that basically they boost the character, and then they make more gold from selling all the fishing materials. And then with that gold, they then buy copies of the game to sell to other people. So they turn all the gold into WoW tokens, redeem it into cash, and then buy more copies of the game. And then they will boost characters on the other copies, and then sell those accounts. It's like, comes with level 120 character. And then 2 months later Blizzard bans them, but they don't care because they've already got the cash and sold the account onto somebody else.
Yeah.
So I always report them for cheating. Filthy cheats.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Anyway, you get off and do your thing. I've got a couple more things I need to grind this evening. And you be around tomorrow, or is your guild not raiding this week because it's so close to Classic?
Exactly that. It's all holiday mode now.
All the casuals.
Have a bit of a break before the hardcore grind of this Classic.
Yeah, I think everyone's going to go into this really hard. It's why wouldn't you? There's no point going into Classic with a casual attitude, because that's not what Classic
that's what
was
retail's
about.
for.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing is, that's good. You know, I think it's good that you can be casual. You know, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
And then I think you'll come back to retail with a more healthy appreciation of why things changed.
Yes, yeah. There's a lot of aspects to classic that you just will not enjoy nowadays. It is just completely unacceptable. But that's part of the experience of classic, and it's why you and me have agreed. You know, we'll do it for 2 months and then sort of reevaluate at that point.
Yeah. Right. Good night. Good night, all.
No problems. You have a good evening.
Cheers. Bye.
It must be destroyed. Now.
So, like I said, hours ago we'll be playing on Golemagg on EU, on the Alliance side.
Our scouts have spotted a powerful threat nearby.
You know, you're all welcome to join us if if it's something you're interested in. It's not for everyone.
Those syndicate hooligans actually believe they can lay
Well,
claim
it's not for casuals. Not for casuals. Tiny Grimoire summons something I already have. And a 340 chord, fantastic. So yeah, my reason for picking Warrior as my main, possibly this time, is that, you know, I do get to do some tanking, which is something I didn't do first time around.
I'll dispatch the death guard to clean up the stragglers.
On top of that, you'll always get groups as a tank. Like, you know, this was one of the things. And if for some reason they don't need a tank, you can go DPS, because Warrior DPS is absolutely fine. But if you are a hunter, there's a good chance that, you know, you're never going to find groups, because nobody wants the 12th hunter in their group. Obviously, it's in Craig's interest to group up, because he's going to be playing a priest, and priests are notoriously bad at killing things. So really, it's the perfect pairing of just getting a warrior who takes a lot of damage, and pair him up with a priest who can just keep him fully healed up, and then you can just sort of pull everything at will. And, you know, fingers crossed we get to power through the content because of that. We'll probably put it on free-for-all loot, you know, just because we're already planning to sort of share all of the gold that we get, because the plan is basically to get everyone to be able to afford the mounts. That's what it is about, getting that magical 40 gold so you can all buy a mount. I'm just going to ice block here and let somebody else beat it up for a bit. We have help! Oh, and he's back for going for me again.
Call in the Valkyr. This one will make a useful ally.
I considered playing a priest as well. Like, I wouldn't mind healing as well, but you don't get to group with your mate, do you, if you're both playing a healer? Because Shadow wasn't fantastic in dungeons.
A formidable opponent has been sighted in your vicinity. Care to test your mettle?
But yes, and I probably will go a mage. Mages are always useful. Got good utility. And everyone loves mages. You know, free food, free ports back to town. It looks like this group is starting. And then my third character, I think we're all doing the same thing for a third character, which is a hunter, because they're the best solo ones, and we're going to be, that's like our farming character for a lot of people. It's a good farming character, hunter. Well, I'd love to hear from anyone else who's thinking about getting into Classic. Guilds do not have a guild bank, of course, in Classic.
Ramshackle alliance been thwarted. Still, I suppose congratulations are in order.
But yeah, I'm very much hoping that it lives up to the hype, you know. Classic in its time was an enjoyable game, and a lot of us are quite happy to live it. But the thing about Classic was it was largely about the friends you made as well. Like you can't really enjoy Classic unless you are, you know, playing it with friends. Because there are long, long hours of doing absolutely nothing, whether it be farming or simply running to a dungeon. And you've got basically 40 minutes where you're just making your own entertainment. You will just be in a chat channel talking to each other. Of course, nowadays, you know, it's Discord that you'll be using, whereas, you know, back then, I don't even think Skype was a thing then. It was literally, you'd be on just in a chat room or something like that, really. Or, you know, just using the in-game chat. But I found grinding very therapeutic, very relaxing. As you can see, I'm just getting back into the groove of it right now. Doing a bit of grinding in retail. Now imagine, you know, flying over to do this other quest, and it takes, you know, a minute to fly over there. But instead, you're on your horse, and it's taking you 5 minutes to get over there. Then you get over there, and somebody else has already killed it, and you've got to wait another 3 minutes for it to respawn. That's what Classic's like.
Than to tangle with a champion of the Dark Lady.
Void Wiggler. Ooh. So this one has 2 extra power, but 8 less HP. Let's get rid of the healthier of the 2. Let's put him in a cage. Void Wiggler. Right, guys, seems like a good spot to wrap this up. Please let me know what you think of Classic WoW, whether you're going to be playing it. Be very much interested to hear your thoughts, and whether anyone wants to play on Golemagg EU on the Alliance side with us. I think that'd be a lot of fun if anyone else wants to join in for a while. Anyway, you all have a wonderful week, and we shall all be looking forward to the release of Classic in... Let's see, the 27th in 6 days' time. Till then, see you around.